Chapter 206. Destroy every living creature. Damn it. So dashing. More than just dashing. He's simply out of this world. Most importantly, it's the aura. The aura. Oh my god. I'm about to faint. When Yi Wanwan looked out the window, she froze and the screams by her ears became distant, leaving a dead silence. All she saw was that man. That unemotional and aloof expression on his flawless face. He was approaching slowly in the rain under an umbrella. He looked simply like a great devil who'd been living in seclusion in a cave, and had suddenly arrived on Earth, ready to destroy every living creature. Damn it. What did I just see? See Yi Han. Yi Wanwan was first enthralled by the great devil's beauty, totally charmed by it. Her second reaction. I'm so dead. It's my death anniversary a year from today. Shit. Why? Why would Yi Han suddenly appear in school? She was still in another man's clothes and next to her was a naked man. For this, it wouldn't even be enough if she died 100 times. She was going crazy. I'm so dead thanks to you, bastard. Yi Wanwan said, as she quickly removed the clothing from her body clumsily. However, it was too late. Her seat was too close to the door, and she was certain that Yi Han had already seen her. She was simply making matters worse by trying to hide like she'd done something wrong. Xia retracted his gaze from Yi Han and looked at her as she removed his clothes. His expression turned gloomy. Are you that afraid of him? Yi Wanwan glanced sideways at him. I'm afraid of him? You kidding me? He's my father. Each time I see him, I want to kneel and call him king. Xia. At this moment, everybody in Class A had noticed Yi Han's presence. Their eyes almost popped out. Whoa. Who's this guy? Who is he? Who is he? He's too handsome. What's he doing in our school? Judging by his age, he can't be a student's parent. Did he come here to meet the school leader? I don't know, I've never seen him before. What's the occasion today? All these Casanovas appearing one after another like they're in full force. Please, the ex or current school hunk can't even be compared to this man, alright. Not only is this person handsome, he has a terrifying aura as well. His influence must be huge. Damn, I really want to know. Who exactly is this guy? Seems like he's walking in the direction of Class F. While everyone was having an intense discussion, Shin Mengqi was completely dumbfounded, her eyes filled with disbelief. Yi Han. He actually came to school. In the past, she still had the opportunity to meet Yi Han quite often because of her friendship with Yi Wanwan. But ever since her plan to get Gu Yuze to help Yi Wanwan escape failed, she hadn't had the chance to see Yi Han. No matter how hard she tried to drive a wedge between Yi Wanwan and Yi Han to ask him out, that dumb girl was never fooled. This was the first time she'd seen him in a very, very long time. The moment she saw him, the hope that was long extinguished in her was suddenly ignited once again. Who's Song Zihang? Who's Yi Mu Fan? Who's Xia? This man. If she could be with this man. Just as Shin Mengqi felt overwhelmed with emotions, she suddenly realized that Yi Han was walking towards Class F, and her countenance changed instantly. Chapter 207. Don't make me take my pants off as well, yeah? Just as Shen Mengqi felt overwhelmed with emotions, she suddenly realized that Yi Han was walking towards Class F, and her countenance changed instantly. Yi Han's here to look for Yi Wanwan. Then wouldn't everyone find out about Yi Han and Yi Wanwan's relationship? Wouldn't that dumb girl be pleased to death? With that thought, she couldn't even sit still anymore. It was as if someone had stolen something from her. That can't happen. At this moment, Shin Mengqi seemed to have thought of a plan as there was excitement across her face all of a sudden. No, she's dead. Yi Wanwan's dead meat today. She's probably still in Xia's clothing, huh? This dumb girl, Yi Wanwan, didn't grab hold of a man like Yi Han and actually fell for Xia. Today, I have to make all her hopes and efforts go to waste just like a wicker basket being used to draw water. However, Xia Yi Han. Both of them have the same surname. Could it be that they're related in some way? After all, the surname Si isn't very common. A flash of suspicion flashed across Shin Mengqi's eyes, but it was very quickly cast to the back of her head. No matter how great Xia's family background is, How could he be related to the C family at all? Furthermore, Xia's a transfer student from Shen City. His family's probably just local tyrants. Ah, he's here, he's here. He's really coming to our class. Who's he looking for? Could it be that he's also delivering a coat? Oh my god. No way. Who's it for? The girls in Class F were going crazy. They watched as Si Yihan got closer and closer. Yi Wanwan, on the other hand, was almost hiding under her desk. She forced the clothing into Xia's hand like it was a hot potato. Put this on. Right now. Xia sneered. No. Yi Wanwan gritted her teeth. Wear it now, or I'll beat you up. Xia chuckled. Don't make me take my pants off as well, yeah? Yi Wanwan. Where's your integrity? While she was speaking, Si Yihan had reached the entrance to the classroom. Su Yi saw the clothing that Yi Wanwan was shoving to the half-naked young master Xia, and was flabbergasted. Damn, what kind of scene is this? This is insane. Yi Wanwan saw Su Yi's expression, and he looked as if it was doomsday. She then slowly covered her face with her hand. I won't be able to wash my crime away even if I jump into the Lethe River, bastard. Xia had zero intention of putting on his clothes. He just sat there and looked at Si Yihan provocatively until a sharp pain emerged from his thigh. Shit. This darn woman, she's about to pinch my flesh off. TSK, continue pinching then. I won't put it on even if she pinches me to the death. Yi Wanwan gritted her teeth and glared at that little bastard who'd rather die than submit. Finally, she could only submit to fate. She trembled as she stood up, left her seat and walked towards the door. Under the gaze of everybody, they all watched as Yi Wanwan stood up and walked towards the man. Yi Wanwan wasn't in the mood to care about the looks that other people were giving her. At this moment, every single strand of hair was on its ends, and everyone's attention was on the guy. That F.A. When she met the man's condescending and icy cold gaze that lacked any human emotions, Yi Wanwan almost called him father. Yi Wanwan bit on her own tongue, quickly calmed herself down and forced a smile. Darling, why were you here? Chapter 208. The Great Devil's delivering some warmth? Yi Wanwan spoke as she continued to struggle on her deathbed, and shot Xia a look to get him to put his clothes on. In addition, she was also pushing all the love letters, candies and chocolates to Xia's side. All these belong to him, they belong to him. I've got nothing to do with them. Forced laugh. Xia noticed that she was pushing everything over to his side, and his face darkened. He raised his brows and took out one of the love letters. Aya, on the cover were the words Tio Wanwan, the goddess Saranghia 1. In big, bold words. Yi Wanwan. I really want to strangle this bastard to death. There was still a remnant of the cold from outside the classroom on Si Yihan's body. His devilish face was stained with icy frost as well, and what laid before her eyes was like the bitter cold wind that sliced through her thin clothing. Yi Wanwan felt as if her internal organs were about to freeze. At this moment, a cold breeze blew in. Achoo! The psychological and physical coldness caused her to sneeze thrice in a row, and she felt very clearly that the aura around Si Yihan became even more frightening. I'm dead meat this time. Not only is there Xia, there's also 10 miles of suitors queuing for me. That darling. The thing is, even when she knew that there was no use in explaining herself, Yi Wanwan still tried. Just as she was racking her brain for an explanation, Si Yihan suddenly glanced at Su Yi. When Su Yi received the indication from his master, he immediately brought out the bag in his hands, and from it, he took out a white roll. That seems to be a coat? In the next second, there was warmth on Yi Wanwan's cold and trembling shoulders. Si Yihan had placed that coat over her, without any expression on his face at all. Seeing that she was just standing here in a daze, Si Yihan looked at her, and then raised his brows. Like taking care of a child, he helped her loop her arms through it, and then his slender fingers fastened each button, one by one. This was an extremely soft and fluffy cloak-style jacket. The edges were lined with warm white fur, instantly cutting her off from the cold from the outside world. Yi Wanwan was wrapped up tightly with only her little palm-sized face peeking out. That face of hers looked even more charming against the white fur, and her dazed eyes looking straight at him were as beautiful as stars after a snowfall. enticing him to reach out to her. He looked at the girl in front of him and his gaze darkened all of a sudden, a steaming undercurrent surging beneath his eyes. Yi Wanwan never expected that it wasn't death awaiting her, but instead, it was a warm coat. Feeling the heat and softness that was almost like fluffy clouds, the cold buried deep in her bones slowly dissipated from her body as a strange warmth flowed into her heart. This unexpected coat actually makes my nose a little prickly. Si Han actually brought a coat for me? Si Han saw something amiss with Yi Wanwan's expression, and a shroud of darkness appeared on his face that was initially expressionless. What is it? Is it so hard to accept the fact that I brought her a coat? Yi Wanwan regained her senses abruptly and lifted her head and said shocked, No, nothing. I'm still cold, that's all, my hands are freezing. When Si Han heard that, he gave Sui a look once again. Sui immediately understood and took out a pair of gloves. Fully prepared indeed. But Yi Wanwan's face turned dark when she saw that pair of gloves. Damn, I said that on purpose to tease him a little. Shouldn't a normal guy's reaction be to hold my hand and use his body heat to warm me up? What the hell was with the gloves? Chapter 209. Si Han's woman Yi Wanwan accepted the pair of gloves with mixed feelings. Not happy. I thought I could get him to hold my hands and ease the atmosphere a little. Then he might not be so mad anymore. But in this current situation, is he angry or not, exactly? Forget about his low EQ. He even has facial paralysis. It's so hard to have a boyfriend like him, I totally can't guess what he's thinking. Just as Yi Wanwan sighed in regret, everyone around her stared at that perfect couple at the door, and was speechless from the shock. What am I seeing? Yi Wanwan actually, she really has a boyfriend. And he's so good looking She wasn't exaggerating when she said that he's much better looking than Si Xia. Just his face is enough. Alright. Listening to the discussions around him, Cheng Shui didn't move at all, like her entire body was fixed in place. That face of hers was abnormally pale, as if she had seen something terrifying. Si Han. That legendary master of the Si family who kills without batting an eyelid. Even if she'd only seen him once from afar because of Si Xia, she definitely recognized him. This man, you only have to meet him once and you'll never forget him. But how could it be? How could Yi Wanwan's boyfriend be Si Han? If this was the case, why would Yi Wanwan let go of Si Han and run over to seduce Si Xia? Could it be that Si Xia was so caring towards Yi Wanwan from the start because of this? Because Yi Wanwan is Si Han's woman. Oh my god, if Si Han finds out about the things I did to Yi Wanwan. With that thought, a tremendous fear emerged on Cheng Shui's face instantly. At the same time, she suddenly recalled the warning that Si Xia gave her. Shut up if you don't want to die. While everyone was still dumbfounded, a voice came from behind the man all of a sudden. Mr. C. All they saw was Shen Mengqi in a pink dress standing there shyly, saying hi to Si Han. When everybody saw that, their hunger for gossip was displayed in their eyes. Shen Mengqi knows this person too. When Si Han recognized that it was Shen Mengqi, his gaze landed on her for a brief moment, but his gaze was empty, as if she didn't exist. Sui never had a good impression of Shen Mengqi. Seeing that she'd invited herself over, his face turned cold as he took a step towards Si Han, blocking any intention to get closer. When she saw that Si Han didn't even react when he saw her, Shen Mengqi bit her lip, slightly embarrassed, but when she remembered that this man was like that to everyone, she felt a little better. Shen Mengqi wasn't able to get closer to Si Han, so she walked to Yi Wanwan's side warmly and spoke in a very friendly manner. Did you come to give a coat to Yi Wanwan? This coat looks great, the gloves are cute too. There's even a little tiger on them. Shen Mengqi spoke so much, yet Si Han ignored her, and even Yi Wanwan didn't respond to her words. It was like she was performing a monologue. Shen Mengqi's expression grew increasingly awkward, and there was a flash of gloominess beneath her eyes. Then, her gaze seemed to move in Si Xia's direction carelessly. It was as if she had a guilty conscience and suddenly said to Si Han anxiously, Mr. Si, you must never misunderstand Wanwan and Si Xia. Si Xia merely saw that Wanwan was cold, so he took off his top and gave it to her. They're just ordinary friends. Wanwan would never mix with those complicated people outside. You must believe her. This comment she just made would make him misunderstand even if he didn't misunderstand at first. Yi Wanwan had a mocking look on her face as she looked at Shin Mengqi quietly. Shin Mengqi finally couldn't tolerate it anymore, and is driving a wedge between Si Yihan and me, right in front of me. Complicated people? TSK. At this point in her past life, Shin Mengqi still didn't know about Si Xia and Si Yihan's relationship. Chapter 210. Choke this bastard to death. TSK. At this point in her past life, Shin Mengqi still didn't know about Si Xia and Si Yihan's relationship. Furthermore, Yi Wanwan had already torn down Shin Mengqi's mask in front of Si Yihan, so her words had lost all credibility. It'd be better for Mengqi if she didn't try to drive a wedge between them. By trying to interfere with their relationship in such an obvious manner, there was no way Si Yihan would believe her. At the same time, Cheng Shui, who was standing off to the side, stared in Shin Mengqi's direction in astonishment. Initially, she thought that this woman, Shin Mengqi, really knew Si Yihan and was very close to him. But after she heard her call Si Xia a complicated person, she was speechless. None of the few brothers in the Si family had an heir yet, and Si Yihan wasn't even married, so Si Xia was the only young master in the Si family. His status was extremely high. Although many people said that with Si Yihan's mistrustful and tyrannical character, he wouldn't let any one of them have a descendant, giving them the right of inheritance. But the truth was that Si Yihan treated his nephew quite well, and even gave him quite a bit of respect. There was a rumor that once a reckless relative thought that by bullying Si Xia, he'd be able to get into Si Yihan's good books, so he humiliated Si Xia in front of everyone, and called his father a useless scoundrel. But after Si Yihan found out, he got someone to slice that man's tongue off instantly. That bloody and gruesome scene shocked everyone in the Si family. From then on, nobody in the Si family dared to disrespect Si Xia. And now, Shin Mengqi actually dared to call Si Xia a complicated person? She even said it right in front of Si Yihan? On the other hand, Shin Mengqi saw that Si Xia was still half naked. That was blatant proof right there. She was so excited that she lost control of her emotions. She couldn't believe that Si Yihan was still so calm when this was akin to catching a couple in the act. Even if Yi Wanwan merely breathed a single word to another guy, Si Yihan would flare up and go into a murderous rage. Wanwan had even accepted the clothes of a man with such a pleasing appearance, and this man still strutted around half-naked next to her. Shin Mengqi acted like she was very worried for Yi Wanwan and pleaded Si Xia. Si Xia, you should put your clothes on quickly. You're creating a misunderstanding for Wanwan. The way Si Xia looked at Shin Mengqi was akin to looking at a fool. Where did this fool emerge from? Yi Wanwan is actually best friends with this fool? TSK, she definitely has a problem with her brain. No wonder she'd fall for a pervert like Si Yihan. Si Xia sneered and grabbed his clothes. He leaned back and showed off the figure that was lean when clothed and muscular when bare. Those defined and smooth abs glistened. Tisk, I'm not putting them on. I just wanted to strip naked for her, so what? The moment Si Xia said that, a deadly silence fell upon the entire classroom. Yi Wanwan's eyes were gaping wide. If Si Yihan wasn't there, she would have pounced and choked this bastard to death. Just what kind of hatred and resentment does he have against me? This guy must be her soul reaper after her rebirth. Well, this is too juicy. Two men fighting over a woman. Not to mention they're both so handsome. Although Si Xia has a different aura, his fresh and young vibe is irresistible. Yi Wanwan's too lucky with men, huh? Tisk, she's a vixen indeed. Totally shameless. Isn't she going a little overboard for seducing guys here and there? Shin Mengqi didn't expect that Si Xia's behavior would be more surprising than imagined, and was satisfied. She continued to meddle with their relationship and said with disbelief, how could you do that? You obviously knew that Yi Wanwan already had a boyfriend, and yet you're still doing this. Is this how you were brought up, young Master Si? Chapter 211. Totally a daddy with a capital D for Si Yihan's sake. Shin Mengqi's face was filled with indignation at this injustice. She clearly put a lot of effort into her act. Si Xia raised his brows slightly when he heard that. My upbringing? TSK. I was brought up by Si Yihan. Xia was relaxed. With a smug look on his face, he even stole a glance at Han purposely before continuing. What about me? If Yuanwan asked me to take my pants off, I'd gladly take them off for her. You got a problem? Yuanwan. You think I'm that crazy to ask you to take off your pants? Have some integrity, bastard. Everyone was shocked by what they heard and rubbed their hands in anticipation of Han's response. He's been made a fool in front of everyone. Sounds like they're going to break up. Under countless stares, Han dealt with Xia's malicious provocation without a change in his expression at all. Han waited for him to finish provoking him, then looked at him plainly and asked, "You done?" He looked at Xia like he was looking at a problematic kid, causing Xia to burst into an outrage, a fiery rage burning in his eyes. Han saw that he didn't make any sound in response. His aloof gaze rained down torrents of oppression and his tone was low and threatening. What? You don't greet me when you see me? Xia bore the weight of that oppression. It was as if his entire body was being pressed on by a huge mountain. His blood was almost freezing. Time passed very slowly. Even in such cold weather, beads of perspiration formed on his forehead. After some time had passed, the teenager finally gritted his teeth and said, enunciating every word clearly, "Ninth uncle." Ninth uncle? After they heard how Xia greeted Yuanwan's boyfriend, those waiting for a good show were dumbfounded. Shen Mengqi, who was secretly happy at first, was totally stunned as well. Nevertheless, this wasn't the end yet. Han's gaze swept across Yuanwan and he continued, "What do you call her?" Xia clenched his fists tightly. His words seemed to be squeezed out through the gaps of his teeth. Oh. Aunt Dem. What's going on here? Hearing Xia calling her ninth aunt, the already confused crowd nearly went into seizures. What did Xia just call Yuanwan? Aunt. They never thought Xia had such a relationship with Yuanwan. So the reason why Xia was so nice towards Yuanwan from the start, and was always protecting her, was because she's his aunt? His uncle's girlfriend? Totally shocking. Yet the one who was in a greater shock was Yuanwan herself. Daddy's amazing, he's totally a daddy with a capital D. He actually managed to get Xia to call me aunt with just one look. He even got rid of all the rumors and misunderstandings circulating in school about her in an instant. It was only after Han heard the word aunt that he retracted his look of warning and turned to Sui. Sui had just gone through this hair-raising experience, and his legs almost gave way. Now he stood there blankly, slowly regaining his senses. He quickly took out a men's coat from the bag in his hand and handed it to Xia. He stared at Xia's face. It was obvious that he was in a nasty mood, so he said carefully, "Young Master Xia, you've just recovered from your illness. Quickly put these clothes on. Don't catch a cold." Xia's face darkened, but he obligingly put on his own clothing. Then he took the coat from Sui and put it on just for show. Catch a cold, my ass. My whole body's close to combusting. Chapter 212. What if you snatch my boyfriend too? Damn, my goddess is amazing. She's actually Xia's aunt. Look at this seniority. Awesome. Now we finally know why Xia was so caring towards Yuanwan. What did Shen Mengqi say just now? She actually said Xia didn't have a good upbringing? PFFF. Then wasn't she talking about Xia's uncle too? With that, everyone looked at Shen Mengqi strangely. This Shen Mengqi's a joke. Yuanwan's boyfriend hadn't even spoken, yet she rushed to explain everything. Those in the know would see that she and Yuanwan have a close relationship and Mengqi was worried about her good friend. But those not in the know would think she's trying to paint a bad picture of Yuanwan in front of her boyfriend. I guess there's a greater chance of the latter. Shen Mengqi has a troublemaking streak. Didn't she steal her best friend's boyfriend? Ah, that's right. She didn't even let Song Zihang go, much less such an outstanding man. She was probably trying to drive a wedge between Wanwan and Han just now. Oh my god, she's just disgusting. She kept saying that it was Song Zihang who forced her, and even said he threatened her, saying that if she didn't comply, he'd tell everyone that she was the one who seduced him. Shen Mengqi said he flew into a rage and splashed dirty water on her. I almost believed her and even sympathized with her. But in the end, it turned out she was just torturing Jiang Yanran. After she was done with her, she started on Yi Wanwan, tsk. She's truly atrocious. And up till now, she's clung on to Yi Wanwan's older brother the whole time. Shen Mengqi had been dumbfounded the moment she heard Xia call Si Yihan his ninth uncle. As she listened to all this criticism, her face turned even paler. What's going on? Xia and Si Yihan are actually nephew and uncle. I can't believe I actually said that Xia had a bad upbringing in front of Si Yihan. Also, does Si Yihan think I'm trying to drive a wedge into his relationship with his nephew? I heard talking badly about family was the most extreme taboo for Si Yihan. When Cheng Shui witnessed what happened, she giggled yet wasn't surprised. She knew this would happen. Luckily, there was Shen Mengqi to distract Si Yihan today. Otherwise she was afraid that she'd be the one in trouble. However, if Yi Wanwan goes back and tells on me. On the other hand, Shen Mengqi was already scared out of her wits. She looked at Si Yihan and stuttered, trying to explain herself. Mr. Si, I didn't know. I didn't know that Xia's your nephew. I'm really sorry. I got things mixed up. I was just very worried about Yi Wanwan, so this happened. Please don't mind me. Si Yihan didn't say a word. He didn't even take one look at her but looked towards Yi Wanwan instead. With Si Yihan's apathetic expression, Shen Mengqi felt like her heart was about to fall through the ice. All she could do was look at Yi Wanwan pleadingly. Wanwan, I really didn't do it on purpose. You know me best. I did it all because I was worried about you. Yi Wanwan listened as Shen Mengqi tried in vain to bewitch her. Her gaze was icy. Really? But everyone said you were trying to drive a wedge between me and my boyfriend. How could that be, Wanwan? Don't you believe me anymore? Shen Mengqi was panicking. This dumb Yi Wanwan. Why does she believe everything other people say? Sui looked indifferently at Shen Mengqi's pretense. This dumb woman Yi Wanwan will probably fall for Mengqi's tricks again. When Yi Wanwan heard Shen Mengqi's desperate explanations, she looked hesitant and replied apologetically. Sorry Mengqi, since you snatched Yanran's boyfriend before, it's hard for me to trust you. I don't think we should talk anymore. Otherwise, what if you snatch my boyfriend too? My boyfriend's so handsome. Yi Wanwan muttered while clinging to Si Yihan's side nervously and hugging his arm possessively, her face filled with protectiveness. Si Yihan saw Yi Wanwan suddenly hugging his arm, and his indifferent gaze showed a flash of surprise. As for Sui, he was delirious with joy. This woman seems to see reason finally. I've waited 1,000 years. Chapter 213. Did I just get hit on? As Shen Mengqi was exposed by Yi Wanwan, guilt flashed over her face, but it was very quickly replaced with a hurt and disappointed look. How could that be? Wanwan, you're my best friend. Why would I snatch your boyfriend? Shen Mengqi's eyes reddened. Her body started trembling visibly as she looked at Si Yihan helplessly, seeking his forgiveness. Mr. Si, I have only high esteem and respect for you. I don't have any other intentions. In the end, Shen Mengqi was only able to take half a step before being blocked by Su Yi's icy gaze. Ms. Shen, please have some dignity. PFFF, seeing that Shen Mengqi had been blocked by someone's underling, the onlookers couldn't help but laugh. High esteem, respect? What do those mean when you're saying you have high esteem and respect for another man? You're obviously confessing your feelings for him. But still, you insist that you don't have any other intentions? A leopard can't change its spots. She kept chasing after Jiang Yanran's boyfriend, and now she's upped her standards by latching onto this guy. Yi Wanwan's boyfriend looks so much more successful than Song Zihang. Yi Mufan already delivered a coat to her, yet she still wants to shiver in the cold, act pitiful and wail accusingly. She thinks people are blind. I remember that the rumor about Yi Wanwan being fed by old men outside school was also spread by her, right? Shen Mengqi's face changed. I didn't. It's not like that. How could I spread such a rumor? Damn it, Jiang Yanran has been so close to Yi Wanwan lately. Did she say anything to her? No wonder Wanwan's attitude towards me has been so different. Yi Wanwan stood by the side and looked coldly as Shen Mengqi struggled to give a convincing explanation to the crowd. She'd once been mocked and excluded by everyone thanks to Shen Mengqi tarnishing her name. Today she finally got back at her. Of course, this wasn't enough. Reeling just as the bell rang, Shen Mengqi took the chance to escape from the unforgiving crowd. Wanwan, no matter what misunderstandings you have about me, I really didn't mean it. I'll explain better next time. Shen Mengqi concealed the darkness in her eyes, bit her lips, shot a resentful glance at Si Yihan, then left in a hurry. Yi Wanwan wasn't bothered by Shen Mengqi and got up from her seat to send Si Yihan off. Looking at the man in front of her, Yi Wanwan was silent. Go to class, Si Yihan said, when he noticed she wasn't making a sound. He thought she was just afraid to speak to him, so he didn't say much either. However, just as Si Yihan was about to leave, someone grabbed his wrist. A little hand was held onto his sleeve lightly. Si Yihan paused and looked at his sleeve. Yi Wanwan didn't know why she stopped him. After she caught on, she quickly retracted her arm and fiddled with the white fur on her collar nonchalantly. Si Yihan didn't rush her and stood there, watching her quietly. Yi Wanwan didn't know what to say, so she asked out of the blue, "Will you ever fall for Shen Mengqi?" Si Yihan looked deeply into her eyes and replied without any expression, "No, I have high standards." Yi Wanwan was speechless. After a long time, she lifted her head and blinked, then blinked again. Did I just get hit on? Wasn't that just a veiled compliment? He actually managed to say that with a serious face when he has me as his girlfriend. Chapter 214. What a fool! Sui looked at his master, who had just proclaimed he had high standards, and then glanced at the dazed Yi Wanwan next to him, speechless. At this moment, he somewhat understood how Luing felt when his master said his standard of a partner had to be unparalleled. Any more questions? Si Yihan asked. Yi Wanwan shook her head. No, just thanks for bringing the coat to me. And the gloves, the little tiger on top is very cute. Did you pick it out yourself? Si Yihan. Sui prepared it. Sui. Master, please check your conscience and say that again. Sure, I prepared it, but I prepared 100 pairs for you, yet you were only pleased with this particular one, alright? Oh. Yi Wanwan nodded and then asked, Is Great White still at home? Yes, Si Yihan replied. When Sui heard his reply, he froze. How is it at home? I hadn't even found it yet. Yi Wanwan was relieved. Lessons are about to start, I'll head back now. Be careful on the roads. After Yi Wanwan left, Sui turned to Si Yihan anxiously. Master Si Lute. You still have 1 day left, Si Yihan interrupted him. Sui was stunned. Tears started to pour down in his heart like the rain. I'll definitely find Si Lute by tomorrow before Miss Yi returns. No wonder Master wants me to bring Si Lute back. He's trying to please his beauty. Although it's hard to admit, Master's becoming more and more like a fool. Hoo-hoo-hoo. After school the next day, Yi Wanwan packed her luggage and bid farewell to Jiang Yanran. Will you be fine living on your own? Why don't you apply for a dormitory change? Yi Wanwan suggested. Jiang Yanran shook her head. It's okay, the college entrance exams are coming up. I'll be able to focus on my studying in peace. Although Qinghe had the highest quality of teaching amongst all the private schools, its atmosphere couldn't compare to the atmosphere at a normal high school. Since many students chose to study abroad after college entrance exams, they didn't care about their results at all. All the girls just talked about clothing brands and makeup during this period of time. However, Jiang Yanran was the only daughter of her parents. Since her parents couldn't bear for her to be so far away, she was preparing to apply to a local college. Initially, she hadn't considered which school to apply to, but after spending so much time with Yi Wanwan, she decided to apply for the performance program at Imperial City Media College. Strangely, she was quite eager to work with Wanwan in the future. Since she'd been influenced by her parents from a young age, she wasn't worried about the professional course in performance, but she had to work much harder for the cultural course. She heard that Yi Wanwan was considering majoring in media relations at Imperial Media. Imperial Films and Imperial Media were the top film and media universities in China. They were the goals of every film and media student, and were also the ivory tower and source of prestige for various fields and industries. Everyone knew of the terrifying cutoffs for the non-arts majors at Imperial Media, and that they were comparable to the cutoffs of Imperial Films. This applied to the media relations major Yi Wanwan was considering as well. Even though Yi Wanwan's grades weren't bad now, her math grades were pulling her overall average down by too much. If she wanted to enter Imperial Media, that was a troubling indeed. Wanwan, since you're going home, why don't you take the chance to apply for math tutoring classes in the evening? Your math marks are a serious problem. Jiang Yanran asked worriedly. Yi Wanwan waved her hand and replied, don't worry. I've applied for them already. The math teacher coaching me is fantastic. Chapter 215. Can't you please a woman yourself? Downstairs, Sui was just helping Yi Wanwan with her luggage when he couldn't help but overhear the conversation between Yi Wanwan and her friend. Yi Wanwan applied for tutoring classes? How come I don't know about it? After all, he was in charge of all matters regarding Yi Wanwan. Could it be that master helped her apply? Jiang Yanran was relieved when she heard that. A math teacher who you say is fantastic? He must be really good. Yep, don't worry. Focus on working hard yourself, too. Well, I'm taking off then. Don't forget to miss me. Yi Wanwan walked over to give her a hug. Jiang Yanran blushed and pouted at her helplessly. Hurry and get going. I'll see you on Monday, okay? Ever since Yi Wanwan stopped putting on her hideous makeup, her face was simply so attractive that even a woman like her couldn't resist, much less a man. Thankfully, Yi Wanwan's boyfriend came to school yesterday and thwarted the intentions of any hopeful guys. Jiang Yanran looked towards Sui and lamented softly. I really didn't expect that your boyfriend is Xixia's uncle. Everyone said he's a great influence. Some people were saying that he might even be that mysterious master of the Xi family, Xi Han. After all, his aura's so strong. You can tell right away he isn't just any ordinary person. Cough. Yi Wanwan choked when she heard that and quickly denied it. How can that be? That's indulging in a fantasy. If Xi Han is my boyfriend, then the president of country M is my dad. Sui at the side. Jiang Yanran chuckled. I also thought it was impossible. After all, Xi Han's famous. How could us regular people meet him so easily? Everybody was just making wild guesses. Anyway, it said that Xi Han looks terrifying and scary, so how could that dashing and gentle man be him? Also, all the sons in the Xi family were in the top professional schools of the country or international training camps. They received professional grooming and education as kids. So what reason could they have for appearing at a private school in the country? Even if that man was somewhat related to the Xi family, he was probably a really distant relative. However, even so, as long as he's related to the Xi family, he's already admired by ordinary people. Gentle? Yi Wanwan forced a laugh. Yes. My boyfriend's very gentle, very gentle. After she bid farewell to Jiang Yanran, Yi Wanwan left with Sui. Before leaving, Sui instinctively cast an investigative look over at Jiang Yanran. So this girl is Yi Wanwan's new roommate? It was so hard to get rid of the last one. Please be one of the good ones. But from what he'd found out so far, judging by her family background and his first impression, this girl seemed fine. Hopefully she wouldn't end up to be another Shen Mengqi. Shortly, the car arrived at Jin Garden. Yi Wanwan glued her face to the car window and looked outside eagerly. Finally, she saw a white figure crouching outside, without a single hair out of place. What surprised her the most was that on the white tiger's neck, there was a pink ribbon around it. It was so dashing and cute, transforming it into a Mo1. Wow. Great white. Yi Wanwan jumped out of the car and pounced onto the white tiger excitedly. As expected, it gave a great roar directly into her face. But Yi Wanwan didn't seem to mind and walked around it, persevering and showing it a lot of love. It was obvious that the white tiger was quite annoyed. By the looks of it, it looked like it wanted to whip her to death with its tail, but it didn't have a choice. It was just its luck to have a heartless owner. He's simply too heartless. Can't he please a woman himself? He has to resort to abusing animals. Chapter 216. Dumb humans. Dumb humans. They actually made me sit here like a dumb stone lion to wait for this dumb woman. And even made me wear this dumb thing around my neck. Yi Wanwan loved Great White's arrogant, dumb humans expression. She picked up her phone and relentlessly took many pictures of it, including many selfies with it. Sui watched as Yi Wanwan fearlessly circled around Si Lute, and the cold sweat on his forehead nearly dripped. Did Yi Wanwan take the wrong medicine today? She used to be so scared of Si Lute before. Thankfully, Yi Wanwan knew her limits and circled around it without touching it. If she hurt this little devil, there'd be chaos on Earth. To be honest, Yi Wanwan really wanted to touch it, but she knew that Si Lute hated having people touch it, so she didn't force it. She could only look at its furry head and meaty body. It'd be great if one day, Great White lets me to touch it. Housekeeper Sue? How are my vegetables? Don't worry, Mississippi. They've been properly cared for by a professional. Quick, let me take a look. Yi Wanwan said excitedly. She turned to the white tiger and said, Great White, do you want to follow me to see the cabbage I've grown? The corners of Su Yi's mouth twitched. I think Great White. Si Lute isn't too interested. It isn't a vegetarian. Sigh, I was influenced by Yi Wanwan and actually called Si Lute Great White. Yi Wanwan was disappointed. All right then. Great White, I'm going to the vegetable garden to take a quick look. I'll play with you later. Yi Wanwan left for the yard in a jiffy after she put her school bag down. Certainly, the fruits and vegetables that were planted before she left were very well taken care of. The fruit trees had started to sprout. The sunflowers were half-grown. Some of the fast-growing vegetables were almost ripe and ready to be picked. The fish in the pond were all lively and plump and not far off. There were even a few yellow chicks looking for food. The yard that had been as cold and terrible as a golden silk cage now had the warmth and gentle breath of the sunset everywhere. Yi Wanwan inspected the fruits of her labor happily while a certain housekeeper followed behind her, bleeding internally. The Jean garden created by a world-renowned architect turned into a farm, just like that. However, ever since Jean garden had been messily transformed by Yi Wanwan, the whole place had a more relaxing vibe to it. At least the servants didn't have to fear for their lives as they took care of those expensive flowers and trees or worry that Yi Wanwan would destroy them. Seeing that Yi Wanwan had returned, they even fought for credit. One of them said he took care of the fresh cabbage while another said he took care of the carrots, making Sui shift between laughter and tears. Yi Wanwan made an entire round from the front to the back of the yard, and plucked a few fresh vegetables ready to be eaten. Then she finally headed back satisfied. As she reached the living room, she saw Si Yihan walking down the stairs. He glanced at the basket in her hand. You're back. Yi Wanwan immediately straightened up. Yup, I saw Great White. And even went to look at the vegetables I grew. Look, they've grown well. Si Yihan replied plainly. MHM. Yi Wanwan blinked. Why do I have a feeling Si Yihan's in a bad mood, huh? Sui by the side. The first thing you did when you returned was look for Great White, and the second thing you did was check on the cabbage. How could Master be in a good mood? But he would never admit that his master, who struck fear into people, was jealous of a tiger and some cabbage. Chapter 217. Compete for attention. Although Yi Wanwan didn't know exactly why Si Yihan was in a bad mood, her sweet-talking skills were impeccable, so she hopped over and asked, Did you pick Great White's ribbon? It looks great. Sui. Although the ribbon on Great White was hand-picked by the master, I was the one who tied it. It was me. I was the one who risked my life. Why didn't you praise me? Also, this cabbage is very fresh. I'll bring it to the kitchen and prepare it for you to supplement your health. Yi Wanwan said sweetly. With Yi Wanwan pacifying him so gently, Si Yihan's anger was decreased by half. Thereafter, Yi Wanwan brought the vegetables to the kitchen. After dinner, Yi Wanwan sneakily went to the fridge to take a piece of beef, and then headed to the yard to look for Great White. She saw Great White swaying its tail and patrolling the yard. When it passed the little chicks, it opened its mouth and swallowed one, unrestrained. Yi Wanwan freaked out and sped over quickly. Great White! Spit it out, spit it out. This chicken will lay eggs for us. You can't eat it. The white tiger looked at her, stunned. then quickly opened its mouth and a little yellow chick covered in saliva rolled out and quickly ran away. Why would I eat a live animal as small as this? I was just playing. When Yi Wanwan saw that the chick was alive, she heaved a sigh of relief. Then she pulled out the piece of beef and dangled it temptingly. Great White, you can have this instead. This was an extremely fresh piece of raw beef. There was still the sweet taste of blood on top. The white tiger, who was usually indifferent towards her, began twitching its nose. Yi Wanwan's eyes glistened as she started tempting it excitedly. This isn't any cheap piece of beef jerky, it's top-notch Black Angus beef. Very delicious. And expensive. I had a hard time stealing it. If I took Si Yihan's beef to feed his white tiger, it's not really considered stealing, is it? Anyway, it all belongs to Si Yihan. Yi Wanwan knew that Si Lute never ate anything fed by strangers, but she'd been living in Jin Garden for almost 2 years. She wasn't really a stranger. Come have a bite, it's really good. I wouldn't lie to you. Yi Wanwan persevered and continued coaxing it. But the big white tiger was very stubborn. It simply twitched its nose and continued ignoring her. So much self-restraint? Yi Wanwan faked a sob. Why were you more difficult to please than your owner? Actually, its owner is still quite easy to please. Yi Wanwan was left with no choice. All she could do was place that piece of beef on the grass next to the tiger, and then walk far away. She hid in the dark silently for almost 10 minutes. Great White lay there, swinging its tail and playing with the chicks. Then it finally used its claws to poke the meat and inserted it into its mouth, swallowing it whole with one bite. Great White swallowed it. Wow. Ate it whole. Yi Wanwan was so happy that she nearly gave a military salute right then and there. It was the first time she was happier to look at someone eat over eating herself. Great White looks so adorable even when it's eating at this moment. Yi Wanwan had no idea that her actions in the yard, including the love-struck way she looked at Great White, were being watched by a certain Great Devil and his housekeeper. Sui carefully took a glimpse at Great White's owner, and his legs trembled. Why do I get the feeling that the dishes prepared tomorrow will be stewed white tiger with cabbage? He insisted on having me bring Si Lute back. Now he has to compete for attention. Chapter 218. Sleep with me every night. Yi Wanwan excitedly circled nonstop around Great White. Great White didn't seem to care for her, yet Wanwan still spent half a day muttering to the tiger, told stories and even wove a garland for it. Occasionally, Great White's annoyed roar came from the yard, along with Yi Wanwan's nagging. When Yi Wanwan regained track of the time, the sky was already dark. It was only then that she left Great White and the cabbage patch reluctantly and solemnly trudged into the house filled with Math and Si Yihan. After she waved Great White goodbye, Yi Wanwan carried her school bag upstairs sadly. Upon seeing Sui coming out from the study, Yi Wanwan quickly asked, "Is Si Yihan busy now?" Sui was on the verge of crying when he saw Yi Wanwan. This auntie is finally done playing. After she went inside, she saw the man sitting on the chair in the balcony with a foreign language book in his hands. His face was obscured by shadows so she couldn't see his expression clearly. Need something? When he saw her approaching, he looked up slowly, with eyes as cold as the moon overhead. She wasn't sure whether it was her misperception, but she felt as if Sui had dug a grave for her. Who said Si Yihan seems to be in a good mood now? Yi Wanwan thought about it for a long time, but still couldn't figure out why Si Yihan was in a bad mood, so she left it alone. Well, it's like this. In less than a month's time, it'll be the college entrance examinations, but my math is really bad. I need some help. Are you busy these days? Could you teach me? Just give me 2 hours, no 1 hour every night. Yi Wanwan didn't dare ask for too much. He's a busy man after all. But as the saying goes, listening to a single comment from a wise gentleman is worth more than reading 10 years' worth of books. Even if she only got an hour, it'd be good enough for her. Maybe it was due to Si Yihan's easy-to-understand explanations, or her fear of making mistakes in front of him, but she felt like her senses were always heightened and focused when studying with him, allowing her to become highly efficient. Yi Wanwan waited nervously for his reply. After some consideration, he placed the book down and said in his usual tone, "I can give you 2 hours." 2 hours. Yi Wanwan's eyes lit up. Really? But I have a condition. Si Yihan's eyes turned slightly darker. Yi Wanwan's nerves were at her breaking point. Condition? What condition? Si Yihan. You'll have to pay a certain fee proportional to my services. Yi Wanwan. And this fee refers to? Si Yihan. Give me 8 hours. Yi Wanwan was taken aback. Ah? Give him 8 hours for what? In the next second, she recalled what happened in her dorm before. At that time, Si Yihan's condition was 6 hours. That's right, he wanted me to sleep with him for 6 hours. So, the 8 hours that Si Yihan meant was probably, you mean you want me to sleep with you for an entire night? Greatly astonished, Yi Wanwan had her eyes wide open. Upon hearing Yi Wanwan's reply, Si Yihan glanced at her and said, You only need my tuition for one night? Yi Wanwan shook her head reflexively. One night definitely won't be enough. It has to go on until the end of the college entrance exams. Until exams end, I'll probably need your help every night if you're free. Si Yihan lifted the teacup in his hand and took a sip. Well, sleep with me every night then. Yi Wanwan. Chapter 219. This exorbitant tuition fee isn't bad. Yi Wanwan's brain crashed instantly. How can he put on that rigid expression and say things like sleep with me every night? Those who don't know might misunderstand and think we're doing something else, but we're just discussing tuition fees for math. After Yi Wanwan finally regained her senses, she immediately counted with her fingers. She'd received 2 hours of tutoring, but in return, she had to give up 8 hours for him. Isn't this tuition fee a little too steep? This is daylight robbery. Yes, my math is bad, but it's not that bad, okay? Yi Wanwan, who felt her intelligence was being insulted, said angrily. Isn't there something wrong with this arrangement? Why should I give you 8 hours of my time when you're only giving me 2? Si Yihan looked as if he didn't care either way about the deal. You can reject this offer if you want. Yi Wanwan couldn't find the words to rebut him. At this moment, Si Yihan was like a glittering gold-studded god. Whether she was admitted to imperial media or not depended on him. How could she bear to let this deal go? Yi Wanwan hesitated for a long time and was forced to clarify. Then we're just sleeping, right? Literally sleeping? She remembered from those times at school and the old house when they just purely slept with a blanket over them. If this was the case, she wouldn't lose out on anything. She needed her sleep anyway. The only difference was that there'd be someone next to her, that's all. Just as Yi Wanwan had that thought and was sighing in relief, Si Yihan put his cup of tea down as he looked at her slowly with eyes stained with the darkness of the sky. He replied plainly, I can't make any promises. After all, I'm a normal man. The moment Si Yihan said that, Yi Wanwan was stunned. You don't have to be so modest. In my heart, you're not a human at all right? Take some time to think about it. Si Yihan got up. Yi Wanwan, who was still in a daze, noticed Si Yihan standing up and immediately, she took a big stride towards him, looked up at him with sparkling eyes and replied resolutely, Deal. Si Yihan looked slightly surprised, Sure? Yi Wanwan nodded. Sure, it's not like we've never slept together before. Si Yihan. Quick, let's start today. Yi Wanwan rushed him. Anyway, we've already slept together before, and I'm also no longer an 18-year-old little girl. Most importantly, I'm not planning to remain chaste for Gu Yuze anymore, so what's the big deal if I sleep with him a couple more times? Right now, there's nothing more important than getting into imperial media. If I keep being constrained by all these thoughts, how will the end result be any different from the past? I can't waste any more time. Thus, Yi Wanwan courteously helped Si Yihan pack his desk, rearrange all the textbooks and stationery neatly, and even made tea for him. Si Yihan stood at the side. His deep eyes had a touch of imperceptible probing as he watched her quietly. After she was done, Yi Wanwan sat upright and proper just like a student. Teacher, we can begin. Si Yihan sat down on the seat next to her, but didn't flip open the book. Instead, he supported his forehead with his hand and said, First, I'll teach you the point I didn't get around to finishing before. Yi Wanwan blinked in shock. It's been so many days, but he's able to remember the point he hasn't finished? Amazing. So this exorbitant tuition fee isn't too bad, right? Chapter 220. Sounds like he just got dumped having successfully endured 2 hours of tutoring. Yi Wanwan returned to her room, content to continue doing more practice questions by herself. Time flew as Yi Wanwan immersed herself in her newly acquired knowledge. In the blink of an eye, she had worked well into the night. Time to pay my tuition fee. Although she was full of conviction when she said deal. Now that it was time to pay her dues, she started feeling very nervous. Especially since Si Yihan said he's a normal man. After showering and much dilly-dallying, Si Yihan still hadn't come to fetch her. Yi Wanwan got anxious waiting for him, but she didn't want to go to him directly, so she gave him a call. At the same time in the study, Sui was doing his routine report. After some time, Xian also entered. "Ninth Master, you called for me? Why did he call me over so early? It's not his bedtime yet." Si Yihan looked up and said to Xian, "Starting from today, you don't have to see me at night for the time being." When Xian heard that, he was stunned. I don't have to come anymore. But Ninth Master, your illness." Sui, who was holding a stack of documents, was also filled with surprise. Master's recent condition hasn't been the best. Why'd he ask Xian to stop coming all of a sudden? Did Master find a more suitable doctor? Sui asked. Xian furrowed his brows. He didn't want to brag, but in the field of hypnotism, he was the best and nobody could compete, so it was impossible for the master to find someone better. At this moment, Si Yihan's phone rang. Both of them saw the caller ID indicating Yi Wanwan's name. Why did Yi Wanwan phone him when she's in the house? While they both muddled over this, they overheard Yi Wanwan's voice from the receiver. "Hello. Si Yihan, I wanted to check. What time do you sleep? Should I go over to your room, or are you coming over to mine?" As the study was very quiet, Yi Wanwan's words were quite clear, and the two of them were stunned by her words. "I'll head over once I've settled some things." Si Yihan put down the phone, turned to Xian and continued. "I'll still give you your salary and will get Sui to call you when I need you to come back." After this, he made the two of them leave the room. Xian was still in a confused daze. "What's going on?" Sui patted his shoulders sympathetically. "You still don't get it? Miss Yi will be attending day school now, so she won't be staying in the dorm anymore, meaning that the master has found someone to sleep with him. You don't have to come for the time being." Xian's face darkened. "Why do you sound so weird?" "He made it sound like I just got dumped." Xian muttered to himself. "I'm really surprised. I didn't expect Yi Wanwan to be so well-behaved and straighten out her thinking so suddenly. This definitely isn't how she usually behaves. I thought after Ninth Master lost control and put his hands on her that she'd cause chaos on Earth, but in the end, she was unbelievably calm. I'm just afraid there's trouble brewing ahead." Sui naturally knew what he was thinking. It doesn't matter whether she really sorted out her thinking or if she's still thinking of escaping. It makes no difference. Ninth Master would never let her go. Do you think she could hurt Ninth Master by herself? That's obviously impossible. Xian sighed. It's good to not have to come here for the time being. I can finally take a breather. With me not around, you have to pay more attention to Ninth Master's condition and give me updates. Who knows, maybe that woman really can untie the knot in Ninth Master's heart." "Got it," Sui replied. Chapter 221. You doubt my abilities? In the room, Yi Wanwan was speechless when she heard Si Yihan say, "I'll head over once I've settled some things." Why does it sound like I'm a wife waiting for her husband to finish his work? I'm obviously just a high school girl who can't afford to pay tuition fees. After reviewing math for an entire night, she had exhausted all of her energy. Once her head touched the pillow, she immediately started dozing off. While she was still drowsy, she heard a pair of familiar footsteps approaching and a chilly breath permeating through her body. Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows and began to prattle on about something drowsily. Si Yihan stared at her lips. His callous fingers brushed over them lightly, but just as he got closer to her, he could hear her repeating, X minus X in 2 series, the formula of a general term, Sum to end terms, two of them has a limit, for arithmetic operations change sequentially. After mumbling on for what felt like half a day, she suddenly reached towards the heat source, into his embrace and called out, "Daddy." Han. She then went silent like she was sound asleep. A long while later, her shoulders started trembling slightly as she mumbled in anxiety and panic. One has been good. One has been studying. Don't be angry at me. Don't forsake me, all right. Han stared at her little face with a mixed expression. After some time, he reached out and wiped away the tears forming in her eyes. The alarm clock rang right at 6 a.m. The next morning, Yi Wanwan instinctively buried her head into the duvet to hide from the sound of the alarm. After a long time, she came out from the covers reluctantly, turned the alarm off and made her way up like a wandering spirit. Just as she'd risen up halfway, a large force on her waist suddenly pulled her back down. She found herself lying in bed once again as she came face to face with Han's blindingly dashing face. The curtains in the house were drawn with only a shred of faint light shining in. On the soft, comfortable and warm bed, there laid a devilishly handsome man next to her. Any normal human being would probably want to sleep for an eternity. Yi Wanwan couldn't imagine that after worrying for so long, she'd be too exhausted and sleep all the way until dawn. She didn't even realize when Han came over. Yi Wanwan's waist was embraced by a large arm. Her body was akin to a pillow being hugged. This intimate position made her heart pound. "Hey, I need to get up to study." The man's eyes didn't open. He didn't seem to have the intention of letting her get up as he said in a low voice, "There's still 2 more hours." Yi Wanwan was speechless. Last night, she slept at 12 and it's now 6 in the morning. There were still 2 hours to a full 8 hours of sleep. He actually counted the hours. Must he be so calculative? Yi Wanwan was accustomed to waking up early. Although she was still really tired, to ask her to lay in bed and sleep peacefully for a full 8 hours felt like a sin to her. Thus she had to negotiate with him. Teacher C, let's negotiate. Can I have a discount? Would 6 hours be alright? Even though I'm a senior in high school now, my math is still so horrendous, so I really need to use all the time I have to catch up. What if I don't do well? His eyes opened slowly, dark as a piece of glass immersed in a cold lake. You're doubting my abilities? Yi Wanwan was speechless. Then what if I don't do well? Can I get a full refund? Chapter 222. Failed attempt. Actually, she knew that with Han's tutoring and her exceptional memory, 1 month would be sufficient. But keeping herself busy was the only way she could be calm and at ease. She thought about her mother, thought about her father, thought about her brother, her home. All these thoughts almost drove her nuts. She knew that Han didn't fully trust her, and was acutely aware that she couldn't do anything to provoke him. It took me so long to appease Han. It's not the right time to act yet. Furthermore, she had a bad record. In order to escape in the past, she often lied that she was going to visit her parents. If she told Han she wanted to visit her parents at this point, it'd basically be like telling him that she was trying to escape again. But ever since she saw her older brother at school, these feelings were much harder to suppress. Yi Wanwan laid in bed, her sleepiness completely gone as she stared at the man next to her, counting his eyelashes while his eyes were shut. Just how can I make Han agree to let me go home? After exactly 2 hours, Han woke up on the dot. Initially, she speculated whether Han had slept at all throughout the night, but just by seeing the glow on his face like he'd absorbed all the light from the sun and the moon, she knew that he had a good sleep. Unlike Yi Wanwan, who was listless, looking as if a demon sucked her soul out. During breakfast, Yi Wanwan couldn't hold it in any longer. Why don't I give it a go? I've been so good lately. Yi Wanwan steadied herself before carefully asking. Hey Han, today's Saturday. Can I go back home to visit my parents? Su-yi, who was standing by the side, heard this question and gasped instantly. Just last night, I said to Xian that Yi Wanwan's been quite well behaved lately. This can't be another attempt to escape, right? As expected, the moment Han heard she wanted to return home, a layer of frost developed on his face. He placed his cutlery down and looked at her with ice-cold eyes that carried an extreme sense of oppression. His tone was glacial as he replied, "The Yi family has nothing to do with you at all." When she heard that, Yi Wanwan's heart dropped. "I know I've already cut ties with my family." Yi Wanwan's eyes darkened slightly as she mumbled in a low voice, "I shouldn't have fought with them over Gu Yuze before. I didn't know better then and hurt them. I really want to see them right now." The air around Si Han became even chillier as he spoke, exaggerating every single word. "I don't want to repeat myself." Although she'd expected this, Yi Wanwan couldn't help but feel awful inside. Si Han didn't allow her to go not only because he was afraid she'd run away. Maybe it was her perception, but in both her past and current life, Si Han seemed to want to isolate her from her past on purpose. Maybe I'm still haunted by his controlling manner. She wasn't allowed to be close to anybody, not even her family. To him, she belonged to him and only to him. From the moment she started being by his side, her world only revolved around him alone. Knowing that Si Han was already mad, all Yi Wanwan could do was give up for now. Following this, the atmosphere was very cold. Nobody spoke at the dining table, and Sui didn't even dare to make a sound. There seemed to be something up in the company. As Si Han left with Sui immediately after eating, without Si Han around, Yi Wanwan felt quite free. But with her mood down, she wasn't able to cheer up even after seeing Great White playing with the chicks in the yard. Chapter 223. Wealthy families are as complicated as the seas. Yi Wanwan laid on the circular table in the yard to do some practice questions. Distracted, she didn't even notice when it started pouring and still held on to her pen in a daze. It was only when Great White, who was dozing under the roof, suddenly roared loudly that she woke up abruptly. She quickly packed up to return to the house to seek shelter from the rain. After she went back into the house, Yi Wanwan did the same thing as the day before. She stole a slice of beef from the fridge and placed it next to the white tiger before retreating somewhere far away. The rain got heavier and heavier, and it started to thunder. Yi Wanwan held a practice book in her hands and sat cross-legged on the floor, not flipping through the pages. Her mind was in mess and she couldn't focus at all. She thought about how her parents still had to depend on her uncle and live under his roof. She also thought about Gu Yuze and Yi Yi. Nobody knew this, but Yi Yi isn't her cousin. She's her sister from another mother. There's a saying that goes, wealthy families are as complicated as the seas, and the Yi family wasn't any different. On the surface, they're the founders of the entertainment industry, have connections everywhere and are extremely powerful, but the truth was that inside, they're disgusting to the point of making one puke. Yi Yi's mother, Liang Meixian, and her mother, Liang Wanjun, were sisters with the same father but different mothers. Liang Meixian was the Liang family's illegitimate daughter, and only entered the Liang family when she turned 18. Wanwan's mother was kind and pure. Seeing that Liang Meixian was weak and pitiful, she didn't treat Meixian unfairly at all, although they weren't close. Liang Meixian was already in university at that time, and was rejected by the roommates in her dorm. She was often bullied and always returned home with bruises. Grandpa Liang Shijun suggested letting Liang Meixian live with Wanwan's mother since the Yi family lived very close to Liang Meixian's school. There were so many rooms in the house that it didn't make much difference if one person moved in. Her innocent mother didn't mind at the time, and agreed to let Liang Meixian move into the house. This became the start of her mother's nightmares. Her mother was too boring and wasn't good at pleasing the in-laws. Also, she had troubles with conceiving a child. After being married for 3 years, she still wasn't pregnant, so naturally, her in-laws had many complaints about her. On the other hand, Liang Meixian was bubbly, cute and good at sweet-talking. She stole the hearts of everyone not long after she arrived. Another year passed and her mother still wasn't pregnant, but Liang Meixian was. She was pregnant with the blood and flesh of Wanwan's father, Yi Xiaoting. Liang Meixian was jealous that Wanwan's mother had everything, and was even more jealous that she was so lucky to marry into a rich family. Meixian started scheming the day she stepped into the house until she finally achieved her goal of climbing into Wanwan's father's bed. Wanwan's father was faithful to her mother. After realizing that he touched Liang Meixian when he was drunk, he didn't hide it from her mother. He immediately told her about the incident and begged her for forgiveness. Her mother was furious at first and chased Liang Meixian out. Wanwan's mother turned a cold shoulder to her father for half a year. When their relationship finally improved slightly, Liang Meixian was invited back once again by her mother's in-laws, and by then, Liang Meixian's tummy was so huge, she was almost ready for labor. An infertile daughter-in-law versus a woman pregnant with the blood and flesh of the Yi family. It was obvious which one the elders would favor. Then the elders begged to allow Liang Meixian to give birth to the child, and wanted her father to get a divorce and marry Liang Meixian. Her father objected vehemently and caused a big ruckus at home. The elders swore to their deaths to keep the blood and flesh of the Yi family, but her father didn't want to betray her mother. Plus, Liang Meixian's tummy was already so big that the baby could no longer be aborted, and thus, a stalemate was reached. In the end, her second uncle came to the rescue and said he'd always loved Liang Meixian deeply, and was willing to marry her. He would also treat the child in her tummy as his own. Wanwan's father naturally objected. This was too ridiculous. How could he allow his own younger brother to marry a woman who was pregnant with his child? Chapter 224. The evidence that destroyed their family. But Yi Shaowen was resolute at that time. Even Liang Meixian agreed to marry him for the sake of the child. The elders forced her father to make a decision. Either marry Liang Meixian, or let Yi Shaowen marry her. Under much torment, her father still rejected the idea of marrying Liang Meixian. The child was in Liang Meixian's tummy. He couldn't force her to abort it, and it wasn't up to him who Liang Meixian chose to marry. Just like that, Wanwan's half-sister, Yi, also became her cousin. After Yi was born, even though she was a girl, the elders worried that their granddaughter would be treated unfairly, so they were especially nice towards Liang Meixian and Yi. As for her mother, a chicken who couldn't lay eggs, they began to increasingly show their dislike of her. Her mother's days in the Yi family became harder and harder. Facing Liang Meixian and Yi at home daily nearly drove her to the wall. She suggested getting a divorce to her father many times, but her father was in so much pain that he didn't want to live. Fortunately, not long after, her mother became pregnant, and with a boy even. 3 years after that, her mother had Yi Wanwan too. The prejudice her grandparents had against her mother then disappeared. Her second uncle, Yi Shaowen, was never well liked by her grandfather. The company was basically managed by her father, and her uncle always banked on his taking care of her father's illegitimate daughter all these years to ask for one condition after another. He caused trouble and made a mess in the company while her father had to deal with the aftermath. Until Yi Shaowen went too far and finally violated the Yi family's taboo. He laundered money for an overseas power, lost a big sum of money in Las Vegas, and even embezzled a large sum of public funds. After her father found out about this incident, he flew into a rage and was determined to stop overindulging him. But just as her father was about to present the evidence to her grandfather, Yi Shaowen threatened him with the video of Wanwan's drug abuse. Since his daughter, Yi, could no longer be used to influence him, fine. Yi Shaowen still had another, even more precious daughter, Yi Wanwan. Sure enough, her father folded right after watching the video. Her father had to take the blame for everything Yi Shaowen had done. Her grandfather threw her father out of the company in a furious rage. In her previous life, she was lured to a bar by Yi and was tricked by a group of people to try drugs. At that time, the house was filled with boys and girls using drugs. The scene looked very corrupt on purpose. The entire thing was secretly taped by Yi. That tape then became the evidence that destroyed their family. If Yi hadn't been worried that provoking her father too much would cause the plan to backfire, she would have directly sent people to ruin Yi Wanwan's reputation as well. After Yi Wanwan awoke from her drunken stupor, she had no idea what happened and was still upset that Gu Yuze stood her up. After that, she was dragged home by her enraged father, who secretly found someone to perform a blood test. The results of the test came out. Indeed, she had used drugs, and it was one of the drugs that would cause one to be addicted for a lifetime with just one usage. Following that, she was sent to rehab at a secure location by her father. He left a sum of money for her and arranged everything. She didn't know that in order to protect her, Her father had been besieged on all sides. She just complained that her father didn't trust her and sent her to such a scary place by herself. After that, the doctor her father had hired waited an entire month to keep tabs on her. Her drug addiction didn't act up. Shortly after, 3 months went by. The doctor confirmed she didn't have an addiction to drugs. Amazed, he researched for half a month and couldn't find out why. Thus, he could only conclude that the drug she'd ingested was mixed with something else, and there was some sort of mutation that prevented her from becoming addicted. Chapter 225. Do you still want your wife or not? Yi Wanwan didn't really believe she'd used drugs, so she didn't dwell too much on the test results. All that mattered was that she was finally free. After she left, the first thing she wanted to do was see Gu Yuze. But what awaited her was the chaotic world outside. Her father was driven out of the company and he lost the family house and car. In just a single night, Yi Wanwan fell from grace, going from the daughter of a rich family to a shameful, balding phoenix, who was ridiculed by everyone. Her fiancé, whom she loved deeply, even became Yi Yi's boyfriend. In her past life, after she found out these circumstances, she attempted to expose Yi Yi's true colors, but unfortunately, Yi Yi was well prepared and she ended up empty-handed. However, she did stumble onto a shocking secret. With so many memories wreaking havoc in her thoughts, Yi Wanwan felt a sharp pain in her head and leaned against the edge of the sofa, slowly spiraling into a dark and deep nightmare. Due to the sudden drop in temperature from the storm, her body trembled and her chest felt so heavy, as if it were filled with lead. It was becoming harder to breathe. Roar, a ferocious, terrifying and low roar reached Yi Wanwan's ears. Her tightly shut eyes quivered and her mind was bogged down, unable to free itself from the fear. All of a sudden, the white tiger, who was hiding at first, started to approach Yi Wanwan as he roared lowly. Seeing her lying on the carpet with flushed cheeks and ragged breathing, the white tiger seemed a little nervous as it paced several times around her. Roar, another roar, yet she didn't show any response. The servants at home usually remained in the servants' room unless they were called upon. They typically didn't walk around freely. Furthermore, Great White was roaring so fiercely in the living room which deterred anybody from rushing over, lest they send themselves to a quick death. The white tiger kept roaring and pacing around her for a long time. Finally, it got closer to her and placed its enormous beastly body on her and laid down, embracing her in its warm white coat, its long tail covering her exposed calves. Meanwhile, the black car traveled like a ghost in the stormy and dark night. Through the rearview mirror, Sui looked uneasily at Si Yihan, who kept his intentions secret. He thought his master wouldn't return home today, but he actually left the banquet early at 8. He knew his master's greatest taboo was the loss of control. And right now, Yi Wanwan was becoming more and more difficult to understand, both her actions and her as a person. It was great if she was well behaved, but even he could tell that Yi Wanwan was testing his master's limits, bit by bit. Once she hit his limits, no matter how well she acted, it would be of no use. Shortly, the car finally reached Jean Garden. The living room was strangely quiet. The master had left Si Lute at home on purpose, and he guessed with Yi Wanwan's love of the beast, she would have made unnecessarily excited noises around it the whole night, but presently, there wasn't a single movement inside. Sui took Si Yihan's coat and followed him into the living room suspiciously. The second the two of them entered, they saw a pile of white hair on the vintage, totem-printed floor with Yi Wanwan curled up against Si Lute, hugging its claws with both hands as she mumbled, "Mommy!" Roar, hearing the footsteps. Si Lute, who was locked in Yi Wanwan's embrace as she called for her mother, gave a deep roar. "Dumb humans! Finally you came back? Do you still want your wife or not?" Chapter 226. Her pulse. Su Yi's eyes widened in disbelief, unable to believe the scene in front of him. Damn. Si Lute, who hates being with humans, is actually lying right next to Yi Wanwan obediently. He's not even trying to tear her apart while she grabs its hair and hugs its paws. But why does it seem like there's something wrong with Yi Wanwan? Su Yi's heart was confused. He had just realized something was off with Yi Wanwan when the figure next to him was already in the middle of hurrying over and carrying Yi Wanwan away from Great White. Go get old Sun. Yes. Su Yi's sweat poured down in streams as he rushed out obediently. If something untoward happened to Yi Wanwan, everyone in this house would have to be buried with her. Half an hour later, the entire Jin garden was brightly lit. All the servants stood in a row in the living room, trembling with terror in their white faces. A black car stopped outside the house, and a young man helped an elderly person with white hair out. Su Yi hurriedly led the way to the house with the two people behind him. The entire Jin garden was shrouded by a dark cloud. When Old Sun and his chief disciple arrived, all they saw was a girl lying in bed with Si Han sitting by the bedside. The girl clutched his hand tightly. After they got a clear glimpse of the girl's appearance, a trace of astonishment flashed in the disciple's eyes. This girl was so beautiful that even when she looked so weak and her cheeks were flushed, she was still extremely stunning. No wonder this master, who was said to be ruthless, was so worried about her. It really was like the idiom, beautiful women suffer unhappy fates. I wonder what illness this girl's contracted? Old Sun, please. Si Han said as he wriggled his hand out of the girl's embrace. However, even if he moved just an inch away from her, the girl became visibly distressed and tightened her grip, as if she was holding on to her only lifeline. Si Han looked at the elderly man and asked, "Could you take her pulse like this?" Old Sun coughed lightly. "I'm afraid not. It'll affect the results." He thought he'd been called to this house because this young master's body could no longer take his long-term insomnia. Who would have guessed that the one who needed his care wasn't him but this girl? Si Han hesitated for a bit, then forcefully pulled his arm out and placed the girl's hand on the little pillow lightly. The moment he pulled his arm away, tears of suffering rolled down from the girl's eyes. Old Sun didn't dare treat this matter lightly. Instead of making his disciple take her pulse, he did it personally. Old Sun took an exceptionally long time to take her pulse that his disciple became more and more nervous, wondering what illness was so tricky that even his master had trouble. Old Sun took her pulse thrice, then finally turned to Si Han and said, "Mr. Si, don't worry. This lady is feverish due to the cold weather. She just needs some antipyretic, and will recover very soon." After Old Sun was done with his diagnosis, Si Han glanced at the girl who was in so much pain that she dampened the pillow with her tears. He immediately repositioned his hand, allowing her to hold on to it again. Only then did he turn to the elderly man and reply, "I'm afraid I'm going to have to trouble you. Old Sun, please stay the night, just in case." Hearing the conversation between the two of them, the disciple next to Old Sun opened his eyes wide. All this for a mere fever? He could have used a thermometer to take her temperature at home for a small illness like this. But he actually called for the secluded renowned doctor, Sun Bai Chao, to observe her overnight. The disciple opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but his master quickly turned to him and shook his head, indicating for him to keep silent. Following this, the elderly man stood up and said, "Thank you for your hospitality then." Chapter 227. Soft, comfortable and so nice. It was already morning by the time Yi Wanwan woke up. There was silence in the big room. The weather outside was clear, the sky was a wash of azure blue, and there was a fresh scent of grass and soil lingering in the air. Some kind of bird was perched on a branch, chirping in high spirits. Very swiftly, it flapped its wings and flew far away. "You're awake." Yi Wanwan was still in a daze, staring at the little bird which had flown afar when she was brought back to the present by the deep voice. Yi Wanwan turned and realized that Si Han was seated on the chair next to her bed. He held a few documents with one hand while the other was held firmly in her embrace, and she had even unconsciously pressed it against her chest in her sleep, not letting him go. Yi Wanwan was stunned and quickly released Si Han's hand. She wanted to speak but realized that her throat felt as if it had been burnt by fire. Her lips were also dry and chapped. "Don't move." Si Han placed the documents down, wet a cotton swab and dotted it on her lips. Then, he helped her up and raised the cup of water sitting by her bedside to her lips. Yi Wanwan opened her mouth instinctively as the water flowed and moistened her parched throat, instantly soothing her. "What happened to me?" Yi Wanwan asked suspiciously after finishing the water. Wasn't I supposed to be doing my practice questions in the living room? Why am I in the bedroom all of a sudden? And why's the sun out? Fever, Si-Han replied, as his face turned slightly colder. You didn't feel it yourself? As her fever had just subsided and she had just woken up, Yuan still felt quite dazed and she mumbled. I did feel a little uncomfortable last night, dizzy and lightheaded, but I thought it was due to the math questions I was doing, so I didn't give it much thought. Sensing Si-Han's cold expression, Yuan instinctively hid under the blanket. Si-Han didn't say anything. His cold aura dissipated momentarily, then came back in full force as he pressed the bell next to him, ringing for his servants. After Yuan recovered her composure, she looked him strangely. Why was he here the moment I woke up? Did he just happen to come over at the right time? Shortly, there was someone knocking at the door and a servant walked in with a bowl of white porridge. Si-Han reached out his arms and presented the porridge to her personally. Eat something. Yuan wasn't sure, but it seemed like although Si-Han still looked terrifying, his tone was much gentler than usual. Yuan looked at the plain and bland white porridge, obviously uninterested in it, but in the end, she furrowed her brows and swallowed it down obediently. Are you still feeling sick? Yuan shook her head. She just didn't have much energy. A long silence ensued, and neither of them said a word. Yuan muttered something to break the silence. I seem to have dreamt about something last night. What did you dream about? As she recalled the memory, she said, one was a nightmare, one was a beautiful dream. I don't remember the nightmare, but the dream was really beautiful. Seeing Yuan's enchanted expression, Si-Han looked at her. Really? Yuan nodded. I dreamt that great white let me touch its paws. They were soft, comfortable, and so nice. When she woke up and realized the claws she was hugging in the dream were Si-Han's, she was somewhat disappointed. A certain someone who was mistaken for Great White and was trapped in her embrace the entire night. Si-Han took a deep breath, rubbed his forehead and carried the porridge away. He said, get some rest. As he turned he said, you can go home when you've recovered. It wasn't until Si-Han had walked out of the room that Yuan reacted to what he just said. What exactly happened when I was unconscious? Si-Han actually agreed to let me go home. Chapter 228. Open 3,000 harems. Yuan instantly felt alive the moment she found out she could return home. She took her temperature, called the elderly doctor to take her pulse again, and after making sure she was totally fine, Si-Han indeed called on Sui to drive her back. Probably because she was very homesick and had just escaped death, she felt a sudden nervousness thinking about how she was finally able to see her parents. After they went bankrupt, her parents sought shelter at her maternal uncle's place, and were still living there today. Her uncle, Liang Jiahao, was mediocre at best and extremely incompetent. He graduated from an average university, didn't have any special abilities and hadn't accomplished anything in life. Even his wedding was paid for and arranged by her parents, and the house he lived in after his marriage was also one of the properties under Yuan's father's name. After all these years, under her father's financial assistance, he became a small boss of his own company and led a comfortable life. Her auntie was a full-time housewife and stayed home to help her daughter with her studies. If she remembered correctly, her cousin Liang Shihan should be in senior year now, preparing for the college entrance exams with her. Liang Shihan was arrogant and willful. She loved competing with Yuan. Whenever Yuan got any new toys, Liang Shihan schemed of ways to get them as well. Her mother loved her younger brother ever since they were little, and she was also very loving towards her niece. Basically, any gifts she gave to Yuan would also be given to Liang Shihan. She treated Liang Shihan almost like her own daughter. Yuan was so jealous that she quarreled with her mother over this several times. After the incident, her mother's first instinct was, naturally, to flee to her beloved younger brother. Yuan was deep in thought. Shortly, the car arrived at a group of villas. The surroundings and plants were aesthetically pleasing. Each villa stood alone with a little garden. Yuan quickly asked Sui to stop the car when she spotted the familiar building from afar. Just as she was about to get off the car, Sui in the driver's seat suddenly turned to her, aggrieved. Yi Wanwan had goosebumps looking at his expression. Housekeeper Su, do you have something to say? What does he want? Looking like a dying man saying his last words. Su-yi continued staring at her aggrieved. Ms. Yi, I'm still single, I don't have a wife. Yi Wanwan, so? Su-yi. At least let me live till the day I get married, deal? I was just thinking that Master had his own principles and limits. But within a night, Master actually allowed Yi Wanwan to return home. As he left the house today, he requested the Master for more personnel to follow Yi Wanwan closely, but his Master only sent him alone to drive her. This means he doesn't have any intentions of keeping a close watch on Yi Wanwan's actions. But if she disappears, my head will be on the chopping block. The corners of Yi Wanwan's lips twitched. If you're worried, you can come along with me. Really, I can? Su Yi's eyes lit up. Yi Wanwan. Sure. At most, my parents would just mistake you for my boyfriend. Su-yi. I think I'll just stay in the car and wait for you. Yi Wanwan looked at the horizon and replied plainly. Don't worry, I won't run away because I don't want to die yet too. If I really get my freedom one day, I want to have 180 young gigolos and open 3,000 harems. Su-yi. What the? My dear girl. Please don't say something so scary, alright? Most importantly, I can't believe she actually said such things for me to hear. I don't want to hear any bit of this. Did the fever hit her brain? Yi Wanwan saw Su-yi's terrified expression and curled her lips into a smile. She knew Su-yi wouldn't dare tell Si-yi Han about this, so it didn't matter that Su-yi knew about it. Anyway, whether she played pretend or not, Si-yi Han's underlings wouldn't believe a thing she said. Chapter 229. The bribed imperial butler Yi Wanwan looked at Su-yi with glistening eyes. It's almost time to form an alliance. Under Su-yi's terrified gaze, Yi Wanwan spoke frankly. Housekeeper Su, I don't want to hide this from you anymore. Everything I'm doing right now is definitely to preserve my life, but I'm not just concerned about my life. I'm also trying to help you. I know Si-yi Han entrusted you with all matters concerning me. And if anything happened to me, the first person he'd blame would be you. So, why don't we work together? Su-yi looked at this girl who had seemingly undergone a transformation, and his expression changed slightly. Work together? What do you mean? Yi Wanwan narrowed her eyes. I don't want to make the same mistakes I made before in Jean Garden. Regarding someone as unpredictable and violent as Si-yi Han, you've been by his side for many years and you know his limits best. If you drop some hints during critical moments to prevent me from provoking him, I think this would be beneficial for the both of us. What do you think? Yi Wanwan's idea seemed alright, but it scared Su-yi at the same time. Isn't this being a traitor? This Yi Wanwan is too bold. Yi Wanwan looked at Su-yi, easily reading his mind. She murmured casually. Don't look like that. Firstly, I'm not asking you to reveal any top secrets, and secondly, I'm not asking you to do anything that would harm your master. Even if Si-yi Han found out, it wouldn't impact you in any way. Yi Wanwan then paused to gather her thoughts, then continued speaking, gazing off into the distance. Furthermore, I might become the matriarch of the Si family in future, meaning I'll become your future master. Up until now, I'm the only woman Si-yi Han has brought to meet the old madam. If you ever provoke Si-yi Han by accident or get yourself in trouble, I'll be able to blow the pillow. 1. To put in some good words for you, allowing you to keep your place and live a worry-free life. Even if I fall out with Si-yi Han one day, I'll make sure not to cause any trouble during your shift. Upon hearing what Yi Wanwan said, Su-yi was stunned once again. Not just stunned, he was totally flabbergasted. This woman really knows how to stir up one's emotions with her lies. There was a split second there when I was really moved. It's just, why do I have the strange feeling that I'm like an imperial butler being bribed by the emperor's favorite concubine? Housekeeper Su, do think about it, alright? Yi Wanwan then got out of the car. If it was Lu Ying, she wouldn't have considered making a proposal like this to him. But Su-yi was different. Su-yi was tactful and smooth in managing social relations, and he was also Si-yi Han's right-hand man. If she could get Su-yi's assistance, her days would go a lot easier. Su-yi sat in the driver's seat in a daze. watching as Yi Wanwan walked away and pondered. After she departed, Yi Wanwan found her way to her uncle's mansion, relying on her memory. She stood at the entrance for a long time and decided to sneak in quietly from the back door of the little garden. She didn't want to shock them with her sudden appearance, so she decided she would only observe them from afar to see how they were doing. But the moment she entered, she suddenly spotted the familiar figure of her mother. Yi Wanwan rushed to hide behind the trees instinctively and carefully peered in the direction of her mother through the gaps. All she saw was her mom's face, once youthful and radiant, now aged many years. She was so skinny that it looked like a gust of wind could blow her away. At the moment, she was carrying a large basket of clothes and hanging them outside to dry. Yi Wanwan knew from a single glance that those weren't just her parents' clothes. The pink item was obviously Liang Shirhan's dress, and that royal blue suit and long bright red skirt probably belonged to her uncle and auntie. Chapter 230. Outsiders. Is Mom actually washing the clothes for Uncle's entire family? Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows. Then she heard footsteps approaching. She saw a voluptuous woman with big wavy hair walking out of the house, clutching a pink skirt. She walked towards her mother and said unhappily, "Jiejiawan, why is my skirt like this?" Her mother turned and glanced at the woman, then looked at the skirt in her hands, looking somewhat surprised. "This? Why is there a snagged thread? Did you wash it using the washing machine?" Wanwan's auntie, Fang Xiumin, asked with an ugly expression. "I asked you and you said it was machine washable, so I put it in." Fang Xiumin screamed in agitation suddenly. "How could it be machine washable? This is real silk. I was probably helping Hanin with her homework at the time and didn't hear you properly, so I just blurted out a reply. But Jiejie, you used to wear nice clothes all the time. How is it that you can't differentiate between clothing materials now?" Liang Wanjun looked slightly embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I've been staying up late trying to rush customers' handmade orders recently, and my vision is a bit blurry now. Tell me how much it costs and I'll pay you back." Fang Xiumin looked at the piece of clothing in her hands with a heartbroken expression and said mockingly, "It's over 10,000. How are you going to pay? You wouldn't be able to afford one of these even if you sold 100 of those cheap things you're making. Xiao Ting and I don't have much money at the moment, but when Mu Fan comes back," with an annoyed expression and flash of disdain in her eyes, Fang Xiumin waved her arm as if to ward off bad luck, and said with a faux generous smile, "Forget it, with the miserable income that he brings in, he doesn't make enough to meet your living expenses every month, right? Don't worry about paying for this skirt, otherwise Jia Hao would think that I'm giving Jiejie trouble." At this moment, a pretty girl wearing a ladylike dress walked out of the house. Her gaze swept over Liang Wanjun slowly. "Auntie, you should hand wash every single piece of clothing in the future, in case you ruin anything else. Also, the washing machine's too loud and noisy. How can I study with that thing going on?" Fang Xiumin looked at her precious daughter and walked over anxiously. "Baby girl, what are you doing outside? You should be focusing on your studies right now." Fang Xiumin then turned to Yi Wanwan's mother, looking upset and apologetic. "Jiejie, I'm so sorry. Hanin's going to have her college entrance exam soon. It can't be too noisy or else she'll be distracted. We'll have to trouble Jiejie to hand wash all the clothes for the time being. We did have a nanny at home before and didn't need Jiejie to do all this housework, but our family's gotten bigger, and the expenses are high, so I had to fire the nanny. I have to take care and help Hanin with her studies, so I really don't have the time to do any of this. So sorry for troubling you. Jiejie, you don't mind, right?" Liang Wanjun pursed her lips. "It's nothing, let me handle it." Anyway, she didn't want to eat and live for free either, and was willing to help with the washing and cooking since they all fell within her range of abilities. Liang Shirhan frowned when she heard that. "Mom, why are you being so nice to her? She eats and lives here for free. She uses our stuff for free. So what if we're just asking her to wash a few pieces of clothing? I hate having outsiders in our house. It's so annoying." Fang Xiumin hurriedly soothed her. "Be good, darling. I'll get her to stay away and avoid bothering you. Focus on preparing for your exams and don't get distracted. Please don't become like your cousin." Liang Shirhan gave her a look of disdain. "Mom, are you kidding? How could you compare me with Yi Wanwan? Chapter 231. Charity for Idlers. Fang Xiumin looked at her beautiful and amazing daughter and said proudly, "Yes, yes, yes, mommy's wrong. My daughter's so beautiful and amazing. When you get into imperial media, I'll get your father to ask your Aunt Mei Xian for an internship at Emperor Sky." Really? Can I really intern at Emperor Sky? Liang Shihan's face was filled with excitement. Of course, the president's wife of Yi Group is your aunt. All she has to do is say the word. The two of them spoke freely without regard to Liang Wanjun at all. If Yi Wanwan was able to hear their conversation, Liang Wanjun could definitely hear them as well. Yi Wanwan saw clearly that when her mother heard her name being mentioned, her mother's face turned pale immediately. TSK, Liang Shihan calls Liang Meixian her aunt? Before Dad lost his power, Fang Xiumin treated Liang Meixian as an illegitimate daughter, but now she's become Liang Shihan's close aunt. Liang Shihan was still discontent and acted like a spoiled kid, but when she heard the engine of a car coming from the front, she suddenly smiled and walked over happily. "Dad, you're home." Yi Wanwan followed the gaze of Liang Shihan. "Uncle Liang Jiahao's back. Hubby, you're finally back. You've been working very hard." The cute and helpless-looking Fang Xiumin went over and helped him with his bag. Having his pretty wife and cute daughter welcoming him home after work, Liang Jiahao was delighted. "What are the two of you doing out in the yard?" "I'm helping Jiejie hang the clothes," Fang Xiumin replied shamelessly. Liang Wanjun seemed accustomed to Fang Xiumin being two-faced, but she didn't want to impact her younger brother's relationship with his wife. So she stayed silent and glanced in the direction of the car worriedly. Then she asked her younger brother, "Jiejie, where's your brother-in-law? He didn't come back with you? I thought he said he would come home to rest early since it's the weekend?" Liang Jiahao replied slightly uneasily, "There's quite a bit of work at the company lately, so brother-in-law has to work overtime." Liang Wanjun was worried about her husband's health and became anxious. "You know your brother-in-law's health isn't good. Why didn't you try to convince him otherwise and let him overexert himself?" Liang Jiahao felt somewhat guilty and was at a loss for words. He was actually not adept at managing the company at all. Furthermore, Fang Xiumin kept nagging him to use his brother-in-law for free labor in order to make up for the free room and board, so he simply delegated all the work to him. When Fang Xiumin heard these words, she raised her brows and spoke at the top of her voice. "Jiejie, I can't believe what you just said. Brother-in-law embezzled public funds and was notorious for his actions. If we didn't let him work in the company, which company would hire him? Since he's working for us, obviously, he has to work hard. The company isn't a charity for idlers. Others work overtime, so why can't he do the same? Is he the boss?" Fang Xiumin turned to Liang Jiahao with an aggrieved and heartbroken expression. "Jiahao, I didn't want to speak up because I respect her as your older sister, but what Jiejie said was simply too mean. Not only do you have to support her, you have to support her husband as well. You didn't even take a single cent from them ever since they moved in, and even gave brother-in-law a job, but now, Jiejie's standing here acting so entitled and demanding so much from you. How are we going to continue living together as a family?" Liang Shihan chimed in angrily. "Auntie, how could you say this? You're living with us and eating our food, yet you have the guts to scold my father. How ungrateful. If you can't tolerate this, then move out. Why are you still here, disturbing our peace?" Chapter 232. The kind of wealth fit for an entire nation. Liang Jiahao frowned. "Henin, how could you speak to your auntie like that? And Xiumin, you shouldn't spout nonsense. It's the truth. I'm not saying anything wrong, yet Daddy's scolding me." Liang Shihan, in complete disbelief from being reprimanded, ran away crying. Liang Jiahao, feeling the guilt from scolding his precious baby girl, turned to his sister helplessly. "Jia, I've already done everything I could. Everyone in this family is relying on me and I'm under a lot of pressure. This is the best I could do." While Yi Wanwan took in this scene, a frenzy of anger bubbled in her chest. "Great! Liang Jiahao, you're great. Fang Xiumin, you're just great. Her parents helped this family so much. They even loved Liang Shihan like their own daughter, and her dad was the one who provided the funds and connections for Liang Jiahao's little company. Even the house they're living in now was once part of Dad's estate. Everything the Liang family has right now was provided for them by her parents. Now that Dad's lost his power, this is how that family treats him. Liang Jiahao watched his own wife and daughter humiliating Mom, yet he didn't say a word in defense. In the yard, after Liang Jiahao went into the house, only her mother was left standing there alone. She knew that with her mother's character, no matter how much the Yi family bullied her, she'd keep everything bottled up and wouldn't tell a soul about it. With their current financial situation, it was too expensive to live elsewhere, so all her mother could do was continue tolerating the abuse. Yi Wanwan clenched her fists and watched from behind the tree. After a very long time, her mother slowly bent down and continued working with the clothes, hanging each piece up, one by one. Watching her mother's thin and sad figure, Yi Wanwan really wanted to rush over to her side. But what can I do even if I run over to her? Other than crying and begging Mom for forgiveness. Other than letting her know how terrible I've been living. Other than making her worry, I can't do anything else. I have to quickly get Mom and Dad out of this place. And not let them suffer a moment longer. Previously, she stubbornly maintained her image in front of Gu Yuze, and spent the money her father had given her, using it to buy beautiful but useless things. Right now I need money, lots and lots of it. Not just money to buy a house for Mom and Dad. Not just money for them to live a good life, but the kind of wealth fit for an entire nation. The kind of wealth that could even allow me to gain freedom from Yi Han. Once my wealth has accumulated to a certain point, I'll have limitless power and connections. I'd have it all. She knew that with her current situation, it'd be as hard as touching the skies for her to make a comeback. Yi would probably use everything in her power to stop her too. I need a partner who could contend against Emperor Sky. As the saying goes, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. Right now, the best choice would be Emperor Sky's arch-enemy, Worldwide Entertainment. However, why would a big company like Worldwide work with a nobody like me? I don't have the capital needed to make Worldwide consider working with me. Thankfully, the chance I've been waiting for will soon be here. Yi Wanwan concealed all these feelings, took out her phone and read the latest bit of news about a popular artist from Worldwide on her radar. Chapter 233. Monitor me closely. Not far from the villa, just as Sui mentally prepared for his own death, he finally saw Yi Wanwan walking out from the yard. He was so emotional, like he'd finally seen the light on Judgment Day. Yi Wanwan pulled the car door open and sat inside. One look at Suyi's expression, and she knew what he was thinking. Yi Wanwan laughed. Housekeeper Su, I've said it before. Even if I cause trouble, I wouldn't do it on your shift. I'll definitely keep my word. Sui was quite touched after hearing that. He coughed lightly. Miss Yi, it's great that you've thought things through, but I really can't agree to your request. As long as you know your place, I think Master won't make things hard for you. Yi Wanwan replied, terrified. This isn't an issue of whether or not he'll make things difficult for me. With my current status, it's just hard for me to gain a footing in the Si family. You should know this. In her past life, after Yi Han found out she ran away with Gu Yuze, he immediately dragged her to the civil administration office to register for their marriage and announce her status in front of the entire Si family. What followed was naturally a unanimous objection from everybody. Yi Wanwan sighed. It's fine, I know it's hard for you. In the Si house, you're the nicest to me and I'm not an ungrateful person, so just think I'm returning the favor. Sui felt somewhat guilty after hearing that. Although his actions weren't as intense as Lu Ying's, he also hated and rejected Yi Wanwan, and was prejudiced against her. Sui hesitated for a long while before finally relenting. How do you want me to help you? Seeing that Sui was convinced, Yi Wanwan spoke carefully. Actually, it's very simple. I just need you to monitor Yi Han for me, like what he's doing to me. Take note of when it's inconvenient for me to interrupt, which days he's in a bad mood, what his likes and dislikes are, which girl he's close with, like Miss Qin Ruoshi for instance. She likes your master, right? Yi Wanwan babbled on quite a bit, but actually, the main point she wanted to get to was Qin Ruoshi, her number one enemy. Everything she said sounded fine until Sui heard the last sentence. Beads of cold sweat formed and he said, Miss Yi, I can help you with some of those things, but my hands are tied regarding Miss Ruoxi. How could I ever leak Master's personal matters? And this is related to Miss Ruoxi. Got it, thanks housekeeper Su. Qin Ruoxi definitely isn't someone I can easily shake up. But Yi Wanwan was already very satisfied with his answer. After Su Yi dropped off Yi Wanwan at Jin Garden, he reported to Si Yi Han upstairs. Master, I already drove Miss Yi to her uncle's place, but she only stayed there for about 10 minutes before leaving. Got it, anything else? Seeing that Su Yi hadn't immediately left after his report, Si Yi Han looked up from his documents. Su Yi looked guilty with a gaze which seemed to be able to penetrate one's thoughts. Finally, he couldn't hold it in and said, Miss Yi asked me for a favor. What favor? She hopes that I can monitor you for her. Monitor me? Si Yi Han's eyes lit up. Yes. But it's nothing much. She's just afraid of provoking you, so she wants me to tell her things such as your likes and dislikes, and also whether. Su Yi swallowed and continued nervously. Also which girl you're close with, especially. Miss Ruoxi. Miss Yi said that Miss Ruoxi seems to be interested in you. Judging by Miss Yi's attitude, she seems to have some hostility towards Miss Ruoxi. In front of the desk, Si Yi Han's expression was unreadable. After a long period of silence, he finally said one word. Su Yi's heart was beating hard. What does he mean by Si Yi Han glanced at him and said, Monitor me closely. Su Yi. Chapter 234. As fat as a pig, Su Yi's tears ended up flowing like a river as he left the room. Imagine me feeling so guilty for a second, troubled with trying to please both sides. In the end, I can't believe Master actually asked me to monitor him closely. Even when the subject of Miss Ruoxi was touched upon, his master didn't seem to be mad at Yi Wanwan at all. I made a serious mistake. How could I forget that Master is now charging full speed towards becoming a complete fool? Following her interaction with Su Yi, Yi Wanwan entered an intense, hellish studying mode in preparation for the exams. Ever since Si Yi Han visited the school, not a single blade of grass grew in acres of peach trees. 1. Combined with the stressful school atmosphere for the upcoming exams, her days in school were very peaceful and free of suitors. As for the old Cheng Shui who always fought against her, it was as if she'd become another person. On the day Yi Wanwan returned to school, Cheng Shui splashed makeup remover oil on her own face and apologized to her in front of all her classmates. Not only did she stop fighting with her, she even seemed to care a lot for her, looking after her in every possible way. An inappropriate way of saying it would be that she treated Yi Wanwan like her own mother, and was very filial towards her. Also, every time Shen Mengqi went looking for Wanwan, she'd be driven away by Cheng Shui. The great devil's force of deterrence is truly not just on the surface. Yi Wanwan knew what Cheng Shui was worried about, but she wasn't born yesterday. She wasn't keen on telling on her to Si Yi Han. After a month of Cheng Shui feeding her all kinds of snacks, their feud vanished into thin air. Normally when she was at home, Si Yi Han wouldn't allow her to eat too much junk food. Also, since she was penniless, Si Yi Han filled the house with clothes, makeup and designer bags for her. But he wouldn't give her any money. She could only ask Su Yi to help her buy the things she needed, and Su Yi obviously wouldn't buy junk food for her. How tragic. Very soon, there was only a week left until exams. Before the end of school, the form teacher gave out the exam applications and instructed all the students to bring them home to get their parents to sign them. Yi Wanwan went to the usual spot to wait for Su Yi to pick her up, but Xia ended up tailing her to the spot as well. Yi Wanwan was stunned. Why are you following me? Although this guy had been quite well behaved recently, she still didn't dare to put her guard down. Xia followed behind unhurriedly. Can't I hitch a ride? When she got up, she realized that Si Yi Han was in the back seat. This was probably because he finished work earlier today, so Su Yi picked him up before fetching her. Yi Wanwan sat down and explained, Xiaxia's hitching a ride. She immediately turned to Xia and said, Sit at the front, it's too squished here. Xia looked at the back seat, spacious enough to hold a small meeting, and his eyes widened. He scoffed. Who wants to sit in the back? After Yi Wanwan got in, Si Han passed her a basket, and inside was a delicate and beautiful strawberry cake. Even though Si Han restricted her junk food consumption, he still prepared some desserts for her occasionally to make her happy. When Yi Wanwan saw what was inside, her eyes lit up instantly as she picked it up unabashed and prepared to gobble it whole. For me. Thanks. All throughout the school day, Xia watched her eating nonstop. He couldn't believe she was actually pigging out again now. His face turned extremely dark. Eat, eat, eat. Wait till you become as fat as a pig. Yi Wanwan rolled her eyes at him. So what? You think your uncle's as shallow as you? He wouldn't leave me even if I become any fatter. Again, he was being compared to Si Han. The veins on Xiao's forehead popped out. He couldn't hold it in any longer and suddenly he sneered. Yi Wanwan, do you really think you're my aunt? The whole Si family, our whole circle. Who doesn't know that my 9th aunt is Qin Ruoxi? Chapter 235. Do whatever she pleases. The moment Xia made that comment, the temperature in the car seemed to drop. However, this time the fury actually came from Yi Wanwan. Si Han simply sat there, expressionless. Yi Wanwan clutched the cake box in her hands tightly and with eyes like daggers, she shot a look over to Xia and said carefully, Xia, say that again. Xia was stunned for a moment by the girl's icy glare, but then he spat out in anger. Sure. I didn't say anything wrong. My 9th aunt is definitely Qin Ruoxi. Who do you think you are? Ryup. The paper box tore in Yi Wanwan's grip. In one swift action, she pounced onto Xia on the front seat. Yi Wanwan, you have the guts to beat me. Fuck, don't beat my face. Oh, stop it. Sui, who was driving, watched as the two brats fought. He was on the verge of crying. Young Master Xia, Miss Yi, stop fighting. Please stop fighting. It's dangerous. Why are you beating me? You can't change the facts even if you beat me to death. My 9th aunt is Qin Ruoxi. Say that again. Say that again. Yi Wanwan clawed at him. Let me tell you. I will never let Qin Ruoxi become Mrs. C even if I have to feed my conscience to the dogs. The two of them couldn't be stopped. Sui was at a loss. At this moment, Yi Wanwan's felt an arm reach around her waist. In the next second, the Yi Wanwan who was still shouting, even if I have to feed my conscience to the dogs, was planted onto Si Han's lap. Yi Wanwan wanted to charge forward again, but was pressed down forcefully. Following this, a voice as deep as a cello resounded next to her ear. Be good, don't insult yourself. Don't call yourself a dog. I wasn't insulting myself. Don't call myself a dog. Yi Wanwan was stunned then realized what Si Han meant. After she realized what he said, her fretful heart seemed to calm down quite a bit. Yi Wanwan lifted her head and said to Si Han, You're not allowed to marry Qin Ruoxi. In her past life, this woman nearly drove her crazy and she even killed Great White. Yi Wanwan felt like her emotions had spiraled completely out of control thanks to that brat, Xia. She rubbed her forehead and sulked. Forget it, it's your freedom to choose who you want to marry. Si Han looked at her with darkened eyes and spoke after a long while. I don't need freedom. Yi Wanwan was a little surprised by his reply. You like being monitored by someone? If I check up on you every day, nag you every day, wouldn't you be annoyed? Si Han gently stroked Yi Wanwan's tangled hair from the fight. I wouldn't be. Yi Wanwan wasn't convinced. She pursed her lips and asked again. Then what about when I become successful and powerful? What if I lock you up, not letting you go anywhere, not even letting you see your parents, sending people to follow and monitor you wherever you go and even lock you up in bed, doing anything I please? When Si Han heard that, he chuckled. Yi Wanwan's words obviously had a hidden meaning. She was making a complaint against him. Yi Wanwan's face darkened. Why are you laughing? You still have the nerve to laugh. Si Han stared at the girl's little face, flushed red in anger. He lowered his head and kissed the corner of her lips. I'm looking forward to that. When Yi Wanwan heard what Si Han said, she stared at him with eyes wide open. As for the other two people in the car, Yi Wanwan was completely stunned by a certain pervert. I said it in that weird way on purpose, yet he still looks forward to it. What else I say? Yi Wanwan gave up trying to communicate with Si Han. Devastated, she put down the cake she had ruined. Of all things, why did I ruin the cake? My heart hurts. As for the main culprit, he was still demanding to be let off. Sui glanced helplessly to the back seat for instructions. Master? This. Si Han replied casually. Call Big Brother and tell him that Xia won't be going home tonight. Sui, yes. Si Xia had goosebumps all over when he heard that. He pounded on the window with great force. Si Han, what do you want to do with me? Let me off. I want to go back. Si Han warned him with a glacial stare. The teacher called today and said the application forms were issued. So what? That has nothing to do with you. Si Xia sneered. Si Han ignored Si Xia and continued. Which school do you want to go to? I already said this has nothing to do with you. I don't want to go to a university, alright? Si Xia replied annoyed. Si Han nodded sure. Si Xia was slightly taken aback. Really? Si Han looked at Wanwan, who was still upset over her cake. I'll get you a new one when we get back. Once he was done soothing Yi Wanwan, he turned back to Si Xia and said, if you don't want to continue with school, you'll have to get married then. Ma. Married? Si Xia was in complete shock like he'd just been struck by lightning. Si Han, are you human? I'm still so young, yet you're so eager to sell me off. Si Xia looked as if he was a little princess being married off by her heartless father. Si Han replied without any expression. Continue with your studies then. If you can't get into Imperial University this time, I'll arrange a marriage for you the next month. Si Xia fuck. Revenge. This guy's obviously trying to get revenge. Yi Wanwan rejoiced in Si Xia's misfortune. Blame your senseless talk. Who asked you to hitch a ride with us? Jing Garden. Just like that, Si Xia's initial plan to hitch a ride and provoke Si Han was ruined. He ended up at Si Han's place, and was even forced to complete the application form. Both Yi Wanwan and Si Xia sat at one corner of the table, while Si Han watched over them at the side, like an exam invigilator. Si Xia was forced by Si Han to apply for Imperial University. Yi Wanwan saw the plight that Si Xia was in, and felt sorry for him since she was in the same predicament too. She said nervously, I want to get into Imperial Media University's PR profession. Can I apply? Too far. Si Han rejected her proposal as expected. Yi Wanwan sobbed. It's not really that far. Anyway, it's still in the city, around 2 to 3 hours away from Jing Garden. It looked like Si Han wasn't going to change his mind. Yi Wanwan made an emotional plea. I thought you looked forward to me becoming a successful woman? If you keep restricting me from doing this and that, when will I ever grow up? Now it's going to university. What about next time when I'm going out into society for work or an internship? Are you going to stop me then too? When will it be my turn to do whatever I want to you every day? Si Xia. May I be excused already? Si Han turned to her. You don't have to be successful, you can do whatever you want to me right now. Si Xia. Are you guys listening to what I just said? Yi Wanwan was so pissed that she took Si Han's hand and bit down on it. Why are you being so damn annoying? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Frustrated that he couldn't get away, Si Xia decided to stir up some trouble. When he heard what Yi Wanwan said, he nodded in agreement. Right. See, he's just so annoying. He restricts you from doing this and that. There's nobody more annoying than him. Si Han turned towards Si Xia with piercing cold eyes. Always has been. Si Xia stared at those eyes and continued, but his voice was getting meeker. Si Han left him alone, and his gaze landed on the teeth marks on his hand. He then lifted his gaze and looked straight at Yi Wanwan. A strange and deadly silence filled the air. An indefinite amount of time passed before Si Han finally spoke up. I can let you go free. From today onwards, I can let you do whatever you want without limiting your freedom, without interfering with anything you do, unless these two things happen. Yi Wanwan was in disbelief when she heard the last 3 words. She clenched her fists in anticipation. Which 2 things? Si Han. First, you beg me voluntarily. Yi Wanwan thought about it seriously and said earnestly. Then can you promise not to stand in my way? Si Han glanced at her, obviously showing her that he wouldn't stand in her way. I promise. Yi Wanwan looked over at Si Han suspiciously. Since Si Han had promised her, he shouldn't be lying. But what does he mean? Does he look down on me? Does he think that if I rely on myself, I'll definitely have my nose rubbed in dust and will return to beg him for help? What's the second thing? Yi Wanwan held her breath and asked. Si Han. Secondly, you get hurt. Upon hearing that reply, Yi Wanwan paused for a while. This? To what degree of hurt? To Si Han, she was his most precious possession and naturally wouldn't allow her to be hurt in any way. Si Han replied blankly. That's up to me to decide. Yi Wanwan was somewhat speechless. This is too subjective. Isn't it all up to you then? Even if I was bitten by an insect and a small piece of my skin tore off, couldn't that be considered being hurt? Si Han. Depends on my mood. Alright, you're the boss, whatever you say. Thankfully, her sucking up skills her pacifying skills were quite good. Yi Wanwan suppressed her excitement, took a deep breath and said, so as long as I can prove that I have the ability to handle everything properly and protect myself, then I'm good? Si Han stared at her with a forbidding gaze. If you can't do it, then everything would return to square one and you wouldn't get a second chance. Yi Wanwan gritted her teeth. Fine. It's a deal. There will come a day when I'll be the master instead. Si Han saw the radiance from the dazzling stars in the girl's eyes. Don't get too ahead of yourself. I still have some requests. What other requests? Yi Wanwan asked carefully. I knew it wouldn't be so easy. Si Han spoke as he took out a document and placed it in front of her. Perform all the requests I listed here. If you violate any of them, everything I said before will be nullified. Yi Wanwan picked up the document and briefly looked through it. In the agreement it stated, no smoking, no drinking, no fighting, no going home late, no speaking to strangers, must reply to all messages, no eating junk food, no looking at the opposite sex, no looking for a change of someone better. You call these a few requests? There are at least 100? How did he even come up with so many requests? She saw that no drinking was emphasized specifically. She wasn't sure why these 2 words were enlarged and in bold. Was this a mistake by the typesetting? Why did he enlarge and bold these 2 words? Shouldn't he have enlarged and bolded the words looking for a change of someone better? Also, what the hell does he mean by no fighting? Does a weak girl like me look like I can fight? Although there were really so many requests that her eyes were going blurry, being able to do whatever she wanted freely was worth it. Initially, she was prepared to throw a tantrum, but the outcome today was undoubtedly the best she could have expected. Sure. Whatever you say. You're the best. I love you the most. Yi Wanwan, who had just bitten him and said she hated him, suddenly had a 180-degree change in her attitude. Xia, who failed terribly in his mission to stir up trouble, was completely dumbfounded. What? How did everything end up like this? It wasn't just Xia who was shocked. Even Su Yi, standing at the side, was shocked. It had been a whole 2 years. No matter how bad Yi Wanwan's tantrums were, he never let her go. Although her freedom came at a price now, the master seemed to have finally relented. A little girl like her who hasn't even graduated from high school, who messed up all her relationships at home, who had all her clothes and food provided for her the past 2 years, who always has countless bodyguards and servants. How could she survive, being left to her own devices so suddenly? Could it be that master changed his tactics and wanted her to experience some hardships in the real world in order to make her stay by his side voluntarily? Xia stood up all of a sudden. Yi Wanwan, was your brain eaten by pigs? You're willing to agree to such unfair terms of slavery? Yi Wanwan was afraid that he'd wreck the matter that she'd tried so hard to settle, so she immediately shot him a look. I just love to sell myself to my baby, so what? Bastard. Always trying to stir up trouble for me. He's really asking for a beating. Si Han looked at her. Who's your baby? Yi Wanwan immediately said sweetly. Obviously my baby's you. This is a nickname for lovers. At this moment, the teenager felt so disturbed that he started questioning his life purpose. Why does it feel like not only did I fail in stirring up trouble, but I even helped her in her attack? Xia gritted his teeth and interrupted the two disrespectful lovebirds. I finished the application, may I go now? Yes. Si Han was in a good mood and finally let him off. Xia only made it out a few steps when a man dressed in bright colors walked into the house. Ah, Xia, you're here too. What happened to you, kid? Why do you look like that? This expression seems quite familiar. Xia wasn't in the mood to bother with him, and left with a darkened expression. Yi Wanwan saw the brightly dressed Lin Ke and the corners of her mouth twitched. His aesthetic taste is something else. If it wasn't for his good looks, people would be completely blinded by this outfit. Despite his getup, he actually dared to make a dig at her. Ninth brother, I already asked you out almost 800 times and you didn't even humor me once. You're not giving me face. It seemed like Lin Ke couldn't manage to meet up with Si Han, so he came personally to question him. Lin Ke complained angrily. Forget about all the other times. But you didn't turn up today as well. Today was the special day that I was going to introduce my girlfriend to you guys. How could you neglect me like this? We can't be brothers anymore. Let's end this. Si Han rested his forehead on his hand and glanced at him. Okay. A cold breeze blew. Lin Ke, even Yi Wanwan pitted Lin Quebec, but was showing off his girlfriend considered important. He changed girlfriends as often as he changed his clothes. Lin Ke was in tears as he lamented. You're heartless and shameless. How could you treat me like this? You abandoned me for an entire month. What are you so busy with all the time? Si Han didn't even lift his head and continued making marks on the practice booklet with his red pen. My girlfriend has her major exams coming up, so I won't be attending any social functions for now. Lin Ke was stunned. Then he realized what Si Han was holding. It was a math practice book and all the red ticks and comments were all Si Han's handwriting. Lin Ke was in a daze for a long while before cursing. Damn. He finally knew why Xia's expression was so familiar. It's the abused look of a single dog. He hadn't had a girlfriend in a long time, because he found relationships boring. This time, he got a girlfriend purely for revenge because he was abused before, and wanted to show off a little in front of Si Han. Who knew that even with a girlfriend to show off, I'd still get so badly abused. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Lin Ke also left in anger, just like Xia did. Yi Wanwan looked at Si Han in a perplexed manner and asked, You've been home these past few days just so you could tutor me? When she heard what Lin Ke said, she recalled that Si Han had indeed been home before 8 p.m. and hadn't returned late lately. Si Han didn't deny it and gave her a meaningful look. I did it to prevent a certain someone from being unsatisfied with my tutoring and demanding a refund. Yi Wanwan had a look of guilt, being exposed like that. Why? Why would I? I really had been thinking about getting a refund though. After she completed the application form, Yi Wanwan funneled all her energy into the final sprint of studying before the exams. In the blink of an eye, it was the night before college entrance exams. Si Han had already fallen asleep next to her, but Yi Wanwan was overcome with anxiety for the exams the next day, and was tossing around in bed, unable to fall asleep. I've been sleeping with Si Han for almost a month already. I've come a long way from the beginning when I was so scared. Now look at me today, when I'm actually able to view myself as a pillow for him. When Si Han says sleep, he really means sleep and he actually treats sleep very seriously. Other than not being used to sleeping in such an intimate position, everything else is fine. And since tomorrow is the day of my exams, this will be the last night of paying my tuition fees. Probably because Yi Wanwan was restless in bed that night, Si Han's fluttery lashes trembled as he slowly opened his eyes. In the dark, that pair of mysterious eyes stared at the girl in his embrace. Then he lowered his head and kissed her on her lips. Yi Wanwan, who was tossing around, suddenly felt softness and warmth on her lips. Her eyes widened. You woke me up. The man's tone had an obvious tinge of anger in it. I'm dead meat. I actually woke him up by accident. The great devil's temper when he gets up. Terrifying. Yu Wanwan swallowed. I didn't mean it. It's just that I have exams tomorrow. I'm too nervous so I can't fall asleep. Don't sleep then. The moment he said that, he wrapped her up tightly around him and started to plant kisses on her forehead, eyes, lips, collarbone. Yu Wanwan held tightly onto the buttons on her clothes to prevent him from unfastening them. She was on the verge of crying. Why did I provoke the great devil on the final night? I was wrong. I'll definitely try harder to sleep and stop moving. Please calm down. This could affect my performance on the exams tomorrow. Si Yihan nibbled lightly along her collarbone. It won't. Yu Wanwan grabbed a pillow next to her and blocked him. How wouldn't it? Si Yihan. You could do all those questions even with your eyes closed. Yu Wanwan was speechless. What the? It's no use even if you give me a magic potion to bewitch me. Yu Wanwan took advantage of the fact that he was still groggy from his sleep. She quickly rolled to the side of the bed. He stared unhappily at Yu Wanwan, who had just escaped his clutches. The gloominess in his eyes increased and loomed with danger as he warned. Come here. I'm no fool. If I go over, will I even be able to crawl out of bed for exams in the morning? But it was also impossible to not go over. Yu Wanwan didn't have a choice. She slowly went over. While Si Yihan was kissing her, her soft little hands lightly caressed his hair and neck. The gentleness in her tone could lull a person into entering the soft clouds of sleep. Be good and sleep. All right. I'll sleep with you. No. Si Yihan spoke this single word and buried himself into her neck, his breathing gradually becoming heavier. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. You're tuning in to the Lime's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.